Come to give you what you love. It's time to give you what you love. I'ma give you what you love. Give you what you love.
Good afternoon. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is a number to call in. If you are hearing the sound of my voice or watching me on any social media stream via YouTube or Facebook, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and I am your host on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays from 1 to 4 p.m. Listen, my virtual background disappeared, so you will see in the whole back of my parents' house, and I'm hoping my father doesn't walk through here at some point, because on Tuesday he walked through 4 times. So I'm going to see if I can get my virtual background up before he comes rolling back out. Yes, I am still with my parents. I am having an amazing time with them this morning. You know, they're both faring well from taking the vaccine. So this morning I was in the backyard picking gungo peas so I could make gungo peas, rice and peas for dinner on Sunday, and just hanging out with them. And we were shelling peas and talking, and we spent hours playing with the birds, the lizards, and everything else. So I'm having a great time with them. So I want to thank you all for your patience. Good afternoon, Malcolm. I want to thank you all so much for your patience while I packed up my equipment and came to visit with them. I want to try and continue to do the show. And I will not always be able to do this, but at this point, I figured that I would. The next time I come to visit my parents, I am doing it without worrying about a show, because I had not seen them since 2019. And I am just so thrilled to have them, to spend the time with them, honestly. Let me see. I see Dr. Anil just sent, let her in for me, please, Michael. Let Dr. Anuli in for me, please. So thank you all so much. I'll be posting some stuff in the morning. It's been a good visit with them. I'm just having the time of my life. And I've just recorded a lot of the things that we've been doing. And when I tell you, looking like my father is amazing. I feel like we have the same face at this particular juncture in our lives. And, you know, he was giving me this whole description about, you know, how he married the mango tree with the avocado tree, with the tangerine tree. I've recorded all of it, so you can hear his voice. It's so melodious. But anyway, I'm hoping he doesn't come walking through here, because I do not have a background filter. So he ran out for a little bit. So good afternoon, Dr. Anuli. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm good. How are you?
I am so good. I was just telling the WURD listening audience that I am visiting my parents. They had their second vaccines. And so I wanted to make sure that they had no immune responses to it. My mother didn't, but my father did. So he was aching and shaking that first night. So thank God I was here to make sure they were okay. So this just ties right into your segment here. So hold on one second. I just can't thank you enough. Let me let the people know who you are so that I'm not being rude, because we have to do it every day. My schedule is full again today, people. Looks like, according to Brianna, I'm booked right into the middle of, towards the end of April. So this is good. Dr. Emparu has been recognized as a physician and surgeon who practices compassionate, evidence-based medicine. She, for over a decade, has been recognized as a physician and surgeon who practices compassionate, evidence-based medicine. She went to Texas Lutheran, Columbia, Duke University, this lady right here. She's also a research fellow at the Center for Orthopedic Research at Columbia. And I mean, she's just on and on and on. She's just really good. Dr. Emparu is on every Thursday with us to give us COVID-19 updates, the vaccines, what's happening. And quite frankly, I couldn't wait to talk to you today. I had to get on a plane on Monday after my show to come visit my family. And Dr. Emparu, let me just tell you, the people are not practicing social distancing. They're not wearing their masks properly. The airlines had to keep saying to them, keep your mask on, do not all get up and congregate in the middle of the plane, and on and on and on. And so we see the numbers are starting to creep back up. So what do you have for us this week?
So you've raised a valid point. The CDC says even people who are fully vaccinated and have gone 14 days or more past the second dose still need to maintain precautions when flying. So the masks still need to be out there. testing in the countries that require testing, social distancing, all of that.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, people are feeling a bit more comfortable.
Too comfortable.
Right. And so we are seeing the rates go up.
Mhm.
But the good news is more people are vaccinated. So as of yesterday, 29.4% of the US population has had at least one dose, which is remarkable in just a few months. And 16% of the US population is fully vaccinated. For Pennsylvania, 39% of the population is fully vaccinated, has had at least one dose, with 14% being fully vaccinated. So Pennsylvania is doing very well. I need to point out a big deal. So as of April 19, all adults 18 and above in the state of Pennsylvania will become eligible to be vaccinated.
Okay. That's good news.
Huge news. And so at this point, for Philadelphia, over 33% has been vaccinated. Philadelphia is actually ahead of the rest of the state, because Philadelphia is technically in what we call 1B, where essential workers are being vaccinated, whereas most people predominantly is healthcare workers and people who live in like long-term cares. In terms of where to get vaccinated, for Philly, we have Children's Hospital of Pennsylvania. It's on 34th and Civic Center Boulevard.
That's CHOP.
And Lea Coraz Center.
Lea Coraz, yes.
They are vaccinating today, tomorrow, and Saturday.
Is that the Black doctors?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the Deliverance Evangelistic Church on Lehigh Street, 2001, is vaccinating the 5th, 6th, 7th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. So a lot of dates. Okay. Bucks County has 8 locations. Wow. They have a location on Dublin Pike, which is the Wise Market. They have a location on State Street, Doylestown Hospital. They have a county clinic, Doylestown Clinic. It's on Almhouse Road. Chester County has over 7 locations. They have the Chester County Hospital on Westchester. The Chester County Health Department on West Town Road. And the CHS Chest-Pen Health Services on Lincoln Highway. Montgomery County has 9 locations vaccinating, and this is all from 2 days ago, the 29th. So this is current. And they have the VDI Skippack Pharmacy on Skippack Pike, the East Norrington Pharmacy on Germantown Pike, and the Wellness Pharmacy, which is on Horsham Road.
Okay. So clearly, excuse me, we have more locations now, excuse me, and more people are getting vaccinated, which is a good thing. What is happening in terms of the rates going up? What do you know about that?
So the rates are going up, I think about 16% over the country compared to where it was last week. And really, it's that people are feeling more comfortable than they should be feeling, because to be considered, bless you, fully vaccinated, you have to have had both shots if it's Moderna or Johnson & Johnson and waited for 14 days.
Right.
Whereas if it's Moderna or Pfizer, if it's Johnson & Johnson, is the 1 shot plus 14 days. And
so the people who are getting the Johnson & Johnson shot and then jumping on a plane, this is not the thing to do.
No.
Okay, let them know, please, because I'm telling you.
And in fact, even if you've waited 14 days and you choose to fly, you still have to have precautions. You still have to have the mask. You still have to maintain distance as much as you can. The precautions go away a little bit if you are either hanging out with fully vaccinated people, then you don't have to have a mask, obviously in a closed location like someone's home.
Right.
Or if you're hanging out with one household where some people are not fully vaccinated. But short of that, we still should be doing 6 feet, even fully vaccinated.
Right.
We still should be predominantly outdoors. We still should be wearing masks. And I know it's very tempting because we're finally able to do a bit more now. But the last thing we want is to have such a surge that leads to another shutdown.
So that's what's happening in Europe, I believe. They're threatening now to have shutdown. Someone is asking about Delaware County. Do you have anything for Delaware County? She'll have that for you next week, Shalada. I'm sorry. We did Bucks County, Chester, Montgomery County. Did you have anything for Delaware County for the site? Oh, she does. She has something for, okay.
Let me just scroll, sorry.
Okay, that's all right. She has it.
Delaware County has 5 locations.
Okay.
It has one on Chespin Health Services on 125 East 9th Street.
Mm-hmm.
The County of Delaware on 125 Chester Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a pharmacy, DAO Pharmacy. It's on 35 South Morton Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Mercy Catholic Medical Center is on 1500 Lansdowne Avenue.
Okay.
I hope this person is close to at least one of those.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for being so thorough with all of this. I appreciate it. So you're saying that if people, even if they're fully vaccinated, they waited 14 days, because we're assuming that the people that are on the planes with us are either vaccinated or at least had one vaccine. And what I am seeing is folks are just not, like, I watched them, right? And I sat there in horror. So they created social distancing benches for people to sit in. And folks, they come and they plop on the bench. And I pulled out my wipe and I wiped, and you just could see the dirt. Because, you know, lots of people are traveling through. I wiped the spot where I was going to put my bags, right? I did that. People were just plopping down, holding onto the chair railings, grabbing their food, not wiping their hands, stuffing their face with the food, and you just see it over and again. They get off the plane, they get on the escalator, and they're holding onto the escalator. They come off, and they're rubbing their eyes. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, this is crazy. Every precaution that we took, the entire country locked down, and we still have people not paying attention. Carry your wipes, people. Wipe everything. If you can't remember to wipe, carry gloves. Wear the gloves and then take them off. Use non-porous luggage and spray your luggage when you get it and wipe it off properly. That's why you're here. It doesn't make sense for us to come this far, only for us to, and we have to believe that there are people who have not been vaccinated that are out traveling. We have to believe that.
There are.
30, 40,
sorry, go ahead.
If there's only 39% of us, at least one person has something in their arm and 24% fully vaccinated. There has to be a lot of people traveling, and the airport is full and the planes are full. I was so devastated. I'm like, where are these people going? But it is what it is, right? And we can't stop people from being themselves.
And Easter weekend is coming up. So just to reiterate the CDC guidelines, even if you are fully vaccinated, the most amount of people you can be with who are not fully vaccinated is one household.
Wow.
So any family planning of like a whole bunch of people meeting up is still not approved.
Yes.
In fact, the CDC is still saying only travel if you must. So we are almost there, but we can absolutely undo everything we've done.
Yes.
And that's the list we want. And over 25,000 people in Philadelphia have passed away. There are real lives and real families associated. And you may be strong, but you may inadvertently give it to someone who has underlying issues, who may lose their lives.
Right.
So please, I know it's hard, very hard, but we're almost there. April 29th is April 19th is around the corner. And every adult in Pennsylvania can be eligible. Let's hang in there and let's finish strong, please.
I'm glad that you are saying this, which is why when I think everybody else is just like, well, we're tired of talking about COVID. In my mind's eye, the goal is to keep as many people as safe as possible, and to make sure that not so many people, because people are still dying, right? We tend to forget that people are still dying. So yesterday morning, I opened up my Facebook. I'm enjoying my family, so I have not been on Facebook or doing a whole lot of emails or anything, just really making sure my parents are okay. And something said, open it up yesterday morning. I opened it up, and a friend of mine who owned a restaurant in Willow Grove that I love to go to put up a post that said that he had just had Valentine's Day with his fiance and was driving to work and had a heart attack while he was driving, ran off the embankment. Luckily for him, there was a man behind him and a police officer. So they were able to pull him out the car. They had to shock him 4 times to get his heart to revive again. Hold on. And when they got him to the hospital, he had 2 strokes. So he was laid up in a bed for 4 weeks, unable to move because he had COVID and underlying conditions and did not know it. So, this is what we keep telling people all the time. You may look healthy and feel healthy, and especially if you're someone who doesn't go to the doctor all the time and don't know what underlying conditions you may have that may be in your DNA strand, I'm asking people to really, really practice caution. If you don't want to think about yourself, yes, it is uncomfortable. I kept my mask on from the time I left my house to the time I got to the airport, to the time I get on the plane. I wore it to get my rental car. I mean, it was crazy. And when I got to my parents, I said to my mother wanted to hug me so bad. It's like, you can't hug me. And so I ran and took a shower, and made sure I just decompressed and washed all the craziness off of me, put on some clean clothes. And then I was able to touch my mother. And even then, I didn't hug her long. My father, I didn't hug him. It was just, it was good enough for me to just see them. Right? Because I don't want them, they just got their second shot, and I don't want me to inadvertently give them anything. And so that's the thing that we're talking about here, that, we all want to see our family members. We all want to, but just be careful, people. It is not that good right now, and we just have to be mindful. Anything else you'd like to add before we say goodbye today?
Couple of quick things. One, as you know, these vaccines were tested in clinical testing. Mm-hmm. What the CDC is doing now is collecting real life data from healthcare personnel to see how the efficacy is working. Mm-hmm. And at this time, it's about 90% after 2 doses, which is a bit lower because it was 94% and 95.1 in the studies. So this just highlights the fact that this is a novel virus, never before seen. We just have to see what happens, monitor it, and make no assumptions. Yeah. And then I would like to actually end on a bit of a positive note. We've been talking a lot about variants, and there's been concern about whether the vaccines may be helpful for some of these variants. We don't have clinical studies in humans yet, but we do have some promising biological studies, so just lab studies where they take human serum and then they look at the markers in the lab, and it is looking pretty promising. It increases when they get immunized by up to 1,000-fold. So they took serum from patients who had COVID, and so they had natural immunity afterwards, versus the patients who were vaccinated, and the help with vaccination was up to 1,000-fold. So for both variants, whereas with the patients who just had natural immunity from having COVID, did not have as much protection from specifically the B1351, which is the South African variant, which was what they used in this study. So this is telling us that while you may have some protection from your own natural antibodies after having had the main form, getting the vaccine appears in the lab, at least in terms of looking at the receptors that gets turned on, appears to give you more protection, up to 1,000 times more, even with those variants, than your own immune can. So it's a pretty suggestive of continuing this vaccine efforts. And it was really a bright light. This was just from last week, and then got published this week in the medical community, because this has been a huge concern, is what happens with this variant. So while this is promising, I hope that makes everyone feel a little better, but not so much that you stop taking precaution. Please keep taking precaution for all of us.
Dr. Anuli Emparu, you can find her at Sunny Ortho Rehab on Instagram and on Twitter. And her email is dremparu@gmail.com. You see it up there, right? Her daughters are wonderful, y'all. Her twins are wonderful. So people can write that down as they're talking to you so they can reach out to you. I want to thank you again for another informative session. You have a good week. Yeah, one more thing.
Sorry. I just wanted to say, I now also have Facebook, which should be up there.
What?
By next time. And it's the same Sunny Ortho Rehab. And you can find the locations, because I could only give 2 or 3 for each county. Right. But we would have a more robust list on the Facebook at Sunny Ortho Rehab.
Thank you, my darling. You have a good end of week, okay? And I'll talk to you next week.
The same. Stay safe, everyone.
I will. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. We will be right back after these messages.
WURD is supported by Temple University, which is Philadelphia's public university. At Temple, students are surrounded by change makers who offer meaningful contributions to our city, country, and the world. Our facility, staff, and students are thought leaders who propose solutions for racial disparities, break down barriers to opportunity, champion equal rights, and challenge oppressive ideas. We believe that empowered minds preserve, and every member of the Temple community deserves space to shine.
Don't miss the Dr. Emeka Show on its brand new day and time. Sundays from 4 p.m. till 5 p.m. beginning Sunday, April 4th. Dr. Emeka. Exclusively on WURD Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
At Bank of America, we believe in the power of collaboration to create jobs and fuel economic opportunity. That's why we're working with local organizations to help people get the skills they need and build a growing pipeline of talent.
I'm Jim Dever, Bank of America Greater Philadelphia Market President. Our partnership with Philadelphia Youth Network is just one way we're taking action to help more members of our community. What would you like the power to do?
Bank of America N.A. member FDIC, equal credit opportunity lender.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on WURD Radio. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. If you're just joining us, we had Dr. Anuli Emparu, who is on every Thursday to give us COVID-19 vaccination updates where we can find the locations. She said that as of April 19th, every adult 18 and up in Pennsylvania will be able to do this. Let the guest in for me, please, Michael. And so we're really excited about what's happening. She gave us the locations for Montgomery, Bucks, Delaware, Chester, and Philadelphia counties. And so she's been very thorough. And I appreciate her doing this for us because we're not quite out of the woods yet. But she also said that we should hold on for a little bit because we see that the efficacy of the vaccination works when we have taken the vaccine. Before I get to Judge Spurgeon, let me quickly take Maurice. Maurice, are you there? Maurice?
Thank you, Mother.
Hi, darling. How are you?
You forgot to say Southwest. You know you got a North, too.
Oh, excuse me. Maurice from South. All right, now you can see I have a guest on, right? So what's up, darling?
I'll make it quick. This is what I'm saying. Did you see the news conference yesterday?
No, sir. I'm with my parents, so I saw nothing yesterday.
Well, when you get
what
a
happened?
chance, they hired me to make the announcement before the mayor came on. And when I came on, I said, "This is presented by Black Lives Do Not Matter." That news conference, well, you'll see for yourself. But
all right, I'll watch it.
It was so generic, no heart, no feeling. The mayor spoke for 30 seconds. 30 seconds. And then he put on his underlings that work in his office who nobody knows.
Is this the mayor's news conference on violence in Philadelphia that we're talking about?
Yes, it was a disgrace.
Okay.
And here's the worst part. They did a slide presentation. So what I'm saying is when we need Cheryl Parker to be out there making noise and screaming and hollering, that's the place where we needed her, right there at that news conference. But I'm keeping it short. Once you see that for yourself,
I will.
And we'll talk about it the next time you come on next week. But I want you to look at that and have some tissue in front of you.
Okay. Shut up, Maurice. All right. I will watch it when I get off the air today. All right? Thank you. All right. So Judge David Spurgeon has lived in the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas, served, not lived, has served in the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas since 2016. Assigned to the Family Division, he handles all matters involving children and families. He has been recognized as a national expert on domestic violence and has been named a judicial fellow by the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges for his judicial leadership. Judge Spurgeon regularly practices as a panelist and contributor in various local, state, and national forums addressing intimate partner violence. I cannot wait to have this conversation. Let me go over here. Judge Spurgeon, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the invite today.
Oh, you're quite welcome. So I hear you're running for
Commonwealth Court.
Yes. So
state level appellate Commonwealth Court.
Okay, state level appellate Commonwealth Court. Okay, so you're sitting there in that position now, or are you running for that position now?
So I'm running for that position now. In Pennsylvania, our courts are broken down kind of like a triangle. So we have the 67 counties that all have courts of common pleas in our trial division, and that's where I serve now, just like it would be, Philadelphia is the 1st judicial district. I'm the 5th judicial district in Allegheny County. And then above them, we have 2 intermediate or middle appellate courts. One is Superior Court and one is Commonwealth Court. And they hear different types of cases that affect Pennsylvanians. And then at the very top of that triangle is where the Supreme Court sits, for Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So I'm running for one of the 2 middle appellate courts.
Okay, so tell people about you. One of the reasons why I have started doing this, we don't endorse anyone here. We should not, and we do not. But one of the reasons why I started inviting conversations with people who are running for the judgeships is that it's a very important position. You have an incredible amount of power, and people don't show up normally for the mid-year elections, right? So we have the primaries coming up on May 18th, and so I needed them to get to know the people who are running for office versus just showing up and going eeny, meeny, miny, mo,
Right.
So,
right. You're exactly right. No, you're exactly right. And that's part of it. And because judicial races typically follow a big election, like a presidential election, it's the next cycle. People kind of lean back in their reclining chair and say, oh, we just worked really hard. Let's take a little bit of a break.
Right.
And for that reason, I think that's something that we have to try to address because the courts make such important impact. On the Commonwealth Court that I'm running, there are 2 seats open, and that court has 9 judges on it. Of the 9 judges, there are 7 Republicans and 2 Democrats. Now, we know that's not how the state of Pennsylvania is registered, right? So that means that some people are taking a nap after these presidential elections, and they're not getting right. And so, and that's one of the reasons that I'm running is because, the courts are supposed to be a check and balance on the other branches of government. So for that, you would think it would be a little bit more evenly divided. The Commonwealth Court is the only court, hold your breath now, the only court in the entire nation where President Donald Trump had a victory. And one of those cases came out of Philadelphia, talking about the poll workers and the counting of the ballots and how close the observers could be to observe that. So in the entire nation, all the lawsuits that were filed by the Trump campaign, the only victories, 2 of them that happened, were both in the Pennsylvania
Commonwealth Court.
Yeah. Luckily, they appealed to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court reversed the Commonwealth Court.
Right.
But that's why I'm running. It's such an important court because all the election stuff goes to that court, but everyday things go. So I'm talking about the court. I know you asked me about myself, but I get a little excited sometimes when I talk about it. So yeah, I serve in the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas. I'm a trial lawyer. I was a trial lawyer, and now I'm serving as a trial judge. And I've served for the last 5 years there. I was appointed by Governor Wolf, and then I had to run for a 10-year term. And I'll be honest, I have been sitting on my hands for the last 4 years watching people do a lot of things that made me very upset. And as a judge, you're not allowed to be political. And because you're not allowed to be political, I couldn't get out and do anything, personally. But I said, you know what? I'm going to get out and run. I'm tired. I just can't sit here and listen to things. I need to do something about it. So decided to run. My background was I spent 19 years in the DA's office. And I will tell you, I was the first person that never thought they were going to stay there. I went there. I applied there into the public defender's office. Whoever hired me first was where I was going because I wanted to get some trial experience because I had a lot of student loan debt. And I thought if I could get some trial experience, I could go pay off all these loans. But I ended up falling in love with public service instead. And I got to do some really good things there. One of my passions was our problem-solving courts. So I was able to supervise our mental health court unit where we got people out of the jail. It's a national award-winning mental health court. Got people out of jail because we saw this revolving door between mental health and the criminal justice system because people weren't getting the treatment they needed. And we needed to treat the individual and stop addressing the crime that they were committing. So we got people out of jail, got them housing, got them the structure that they needed, got them the support that they needed. And we were able to use the money that had somebody, in our county, it cost $105 a day to keep somebody in jail. We're able to use that money to put it towards services and actually treat people. And so we were able to do that. And we were able to have people and treat them as individuals to know what they needed to not recidivate or commit another crime. So that was one of my passions. We created a veterans court based on that as well. But as I said, I was the lead prosecutor for our county in domestic violence cases. That's how I became an expert. So anytime a woman or child was physically or sexually abused or murdered by someone they had a family relationship or with someone that told them that they loved them, that case was overseen by me. And that became my passion. That's why I stuck around. And, you know, I was talking about the problem-solving courts. When I left to become a judge, we had more problem-solving courts in our county than anywhere else in the state because we were trying to treat people as individuals. And that's what we need to do when we talk about criminal justice reform and things along those lines. But so I grew up outside of Pittsburgh.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you this, because people are now paying attention and starting to take a look. I got really offended because folks would just say, vote for me, and not really show up in spaces like this to have a conversation. And I get it, right? But tell us what was one of the biggest mistakes you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
So I think one of the biggest mistakes that I've ever made, and, you know, I'd like to think that we all learn from our mistakes, right? That's our human journey, is to learn from our mistakes, is I think that I believe that people were going to elect judges just based on qualifications and merit. And I didn't realize that you had to, you know, really sell yourself. I thought people would just check on you. You know, I'm the only highly recommended candidate for the Commonwealth Court by the Pennsylvania Bar Association. And so you would think, oh, well, I was highly recommended for common pleas too. That would be enough. No, you really have to get out there, because like what you're saying is, you know, people vote based on name or where someone's coming from and not qualifications sometimes. And I think the biggest mistake that I had was the first time I ran as trial judge and I didn't win, was I thought that I would just be able to present my resume and people would say, that's the person we want.
That's wonderful. He had the right pedigree. He went to this college. He worked in the DA's office. Of course he's a shoo-in. Nope. Yeah, politics is a very interesting place, right?
Absolutely.
But while you've been a trial judge, where have you made missteps while you are officiating that? Just give me one instance where you made a misstep and you just learned from it. Can you think of one?
You know, I'm very happy to say I've never been reversed on the bench. So I've never had a decision overturned.
Never been reversed. Okay,
never been reversed.
You're thinking through your decisions. All right.
So I've always tried to make careful and decisions and not be hasty. But I think typically when that comes to mind, it's giving somebody the benefit of the doubt. You know, that happens. I think everyone deserves a second chance or a third chance. And so I've made some mistakes in terms of giving someone a second chance or a third chance that maybe I shouldn't have. But we're all human.
Okay, got you. So you're the judge that, with a heart, I call it. And sometimes that can land you in different places. But it's good to know that you think through your cases and that you've never been reversed. Let me just think. What else would you like to share with us? And then tell us how we can reach you.
So I would love to share that, you know, one of the problems and one of the reasons I'm running for that court is it addresses everyday issues for people, whether it be education, the environment, driver's license, all the regulatory agencies within the state. So it's really a check on whether or not our government is doing what it's supposed to do. It's kind of holding our government accountable, whether or not they're doing their job.
Right.
And I think that we're missing everyday people there. You know, I grew up in a town that was a depressed town because the steel mills collapsed. And it's that everyday perspective that's missing on that court, to people to realize that people are three-dimensional. They're not a name on a piece of paper. You know, they're not just a number. They are an actual person. And when you make a decision, those decisions impact everyday people, not just the person that you're making the decision on, their families, the people that love them, the people that have an interaction with them. And I think that's the reason that the courts are so distant. And I think we need to elect people like me, who I consider myself a servant leader, meaning I'm a public servant, but I also want to be a leader in my community. I still live in the same school district that I grew up in and I graduated from. It's a community that is 56% African American. And that is important to me to build a house.
You just answered my next question. Like the Commonwealth Court has to encompass the entire state of people. How would you then work with, because Philadelphia is a large county, right? And you're from Allegheny County. And so I wanted to, that was my next question. How are you going to be able to manage working with all kinds of people, not just the people that you serve in Allegheny County?
Right. And I think that's what you're striving for. You're striving for people that want to be part of their community, because how do you know what issues are arising in a community if you're so distant that you aren't accessible and able to be reached to try to address it? Because I will tell you, one of the best parts about being a judge is when there's a problem and someone calls me. If I call a meeting, people show up because I'm the judge. It's not like, oh, maybe you'd like to come to this meeting. They're like, well, the judge called, I better show up. So you can really effectuate a lot of systems change, or you can try to identify problems, or even put the right people in the room. Even if that's all you're doing, you're still making an impact by that. But I think we need judges that are not afraid to go to all 67 counties that make up Pennsylvania.
Right.
You know, I was in Philadelphia last week. I heard you talking about gun violence. I was actually at a rally with a revolving gun violence that was Councilman Johnson's rally in South Park 2 Saturdays ago, or last Saturday. No, 2 Saturdays ago. And, you know, Senator Street was there, and there were so many other individuals that were there, because obviously it's an issue. And if you don't feel like you can reach out to somebody who actually is a change maker or somebody that's making an impact, then you're not doing your job as a judge. You really, really aren't. You know, we have to sometimes navigate a fine line between being political, but certainly you should be able to be part of a stakeholder group that's going to make and effectuate change. And that should be for all Pennsylvanians, not just certain zip codes, not just people that look a certain way or make a certain amount of money, all Pennsylvanians. Well, all right then. Tell the people how they can reach you to look up and see and learn more about you. Well, you can go to our website, which is Judge Spurgeon 4 Commonwealth.com. You can check us out on Facebook, the same thing, Judge Spurgeon for Commonwealth. And you can reach us any of those ways. It has all of our contact information, our telephone number, and all of those great things. And I will be back in Philadelphia on April 9th to say hello. I was endorsed by the Philadelphia Black Clergy, and I'm coming out for their press conference on April 9th. What? So, yeah. Well, all right then. You must have said something good to them, because they're a tough crew. All right. It was a great group. Yeah. Judge Spurgeon, it's a pleasure talking to you. I wish you well in the primaries, and we'll catch up with you soon. Make sure you reach him, Judge Spurgeon for Commonwealth. Did I read that properly? You did. Judge Spurgeon for Commonwealth.com, right? Yes. Yes. Okay. And there you'll find all the information on how to reach him. Good luck, sir. And thank you. To do the good work. Have a good one. Please invite me back to visit. Oh, we will. All right, sir. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. All right. Now I have a couple of minutes before I go to break, so I'm going to grab Prince, and then if I have to go into break, I'll let him hold. Come on, Prince. How are you?
So you mean to tell me that these guys would support a Caucasian running for judge, but yet they were nowhere to be found to nominate a judge by the Democratic Party to run
Dang, Prince, you could have said, hi, Marva.
No, because you know what? When I looked at that Snoop Dogg commercial when he was on the beach with a Corona, and you in there that nice weather, and they're talking about snowflakes tomorrow. No, you enjoying yourself. But anyway, good afternoon. How are you?
Between you and Maurice, I don't know what to do with myself. I am good, sir. And so the black clergy, he said the black clergy endorsed him. This is why I want folks to listen to this is why I'm doing all these interviews, right? Listen to the folks, know where they're from, what county they're from, what are the platforms they're standing on. He said he's never had a decision reversed, all of that good stuff. And he said he was the only one that was highly recommended by the Bar Association up there for the Commonwealth Court and by the Philadelphia Bar Association. So that it's interesting. Good stuff to listen to know who's getting what and where they're, all of that. So listen, I ain't mad at him. He did what he was supposed to do, got his endorsement, but you asked a pivotal question. So now we want to find out why did they endorse him versus someone down here in Philadelphia running for Commonwealth Court. It's a good question.
It's a fair question because one of them pastors that was on your show on Tuesday, name not mentioned, said black clergy don't really endorse people. So this man said they endorse them, and so he said black clergy has a political arm. That's what he said. Right, but so you mean to tell me there were no qualified African American females and males that they could endorse, or maybe we haven't seen the list, or we sure haven't heard it, because this station says we unapologetically black. You need to apologize for that endorsement. How about that? But anyway, let me just move on because you're not here, and yesterday was a real hurtful day because
I heard. So let me take a quick break so that you and I can talk uninterrupted. So let me take the station break first. Okay, all right, hold on. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms. Hi, Papa, at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. We will be right back after these messages.
Recovery starts with a call. Pennsylvania's Substance Use Disorder Hotline. is staffed by real people who are trained to help. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll get you or your loved one into treatment regardless of your access to insurance. If you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, call 1-800-662-HELP. Recovery starts with a call.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
You probably heard it before, but one of the best ways to stay safe from COVID is by avoiding crowds. That's better. Also, when you're out in public, make sure you stay 6 feet away from strangers or people you don't live with. It's okay to say, "Can I have some space, please?"
Well, it's going to be a beautiful sunny day today, and we can expect much.
If you're gonna have a get-together with friends and family, have it outside. And remember to keep those 6 feet of social distance. And last but not least, wear a mask that covers your nose and mouth with no gaps. They slow the spread of COVID or new forms of the virus called variants. And make sure you get your vaccine when it's your turn. We're all out here trying our best, and it's making a difference. We just gotta keep it up. We can do this.
To learn more about slowing the spread, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
This is not a fad for us. We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are undeniably, indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media. WURD.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on WURD Radio. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. Someone called in asking Michael if I knew of a black dentist. So I told him yes, and I sent them the dentist's name and address because Mother don't play like that. But if you're just joining us, Prince is on. Getting ready to give you an earful about something that happened yesterday. For those of you who are just here and have not heard me say this, I went to visit my parents because they got their vaccinations to make sure they were okay. I am still here with them, praise the Lord, and I'm enjoying them immensely. So what happened yesterday, Prince, because I didn't turn on a television or watch a diggity dang thing.
And she's also enjoying the nice weather, y'all.
Yes, I am.
So there was a shooting at an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old were riding bikes.
Yes.
And there was a shooting.
Carly Balance is his name. Yes.
Right. Now, is he Haitian or is he Jamaican? What is he?
I don't know, but I did interview someone on Monday, Hania Sharp Brown, whose son was friends with Harley, a little 11-year-old boy. Why? What happened?
Well, because what we don't understand is that the legacy from foreigners are through their male children. You see, and so if he's Haitian, then that legacy is through his son, or Jamaican, that legacy is through his son. And we are unapologetically black. But from early this morning till now, you heard nothing about this 11-year-old, even after seeing his father on TV shedding tears. All he wanted was justice. And you had no politicians go and embrace him. You had no one of worth any salt in this city go and put an arm around this man and say, we're going to do all we can to prosecute the person. He turned himself in. But how did we get to a point where we lack the compassion in this city right here to not feel this grown man's tears of the loss of his son? And so we got to that point where a 15-year-old male and a 14-year-old female get shot on Happy Hollow basketball court, and we move on the next day as if it does not matter. And I think if hosts don't start off with this narrative early in the morning, then we need new hosts on this station right here. If it's not about money, then it needs to be about programming. And if we're not going to program, undefatigably about Black Lives Mattering, then it's ridiculous. Because, it's like we're being micromanaged into either the COVID situation or a special guest or all these other guests or all these other people from other places that when our kitchen is on fire, we looking at the house down the street trying to find out what's going on. And it's ridiculous.
So Can I say this, Prince? I hear you. I fully hear you. I think I started this a couple of weeks ago when I said that I was going. So I talked to the victim's parents of the 15-year-old Antonio Walker Jr., his mother and his grandfather. And then I interviewed Hania. I need to now reach out to the father of Harley, because you're right. We need to have these conversations. And there was another young lady that was murdered that was covered by Janice Armstrong. And she reached out to me. She says, nobody's covering it. Turns out one of the people who were her friends is someone that I mentor. So I'm about to get that whole family on. And you're absolutely right. We need to humanize these victims and their families and spend time talking about what is going on in this city. Did the person that shot Harley, the 11-year-old, did the person that killed Harley Balance, was that person captured?
He turned himself in. So he
turned himself in.
So here's another situation. We spend more time talking about people who are past 70 who have passed away, opposed to young people who will never make it to 70 at all. And so there's a story behind these young black men who go and turn themselves in. So the story is, where did they ever get the concept that it was okay? And they have no idea what they're about to encounter with the next 20, 30 years of their lives in prison. And so this is the pathetic part of these people that are getting paid to represent us and not have the compassion. And it's overrated, the fact that they can come on and have their 5 minutes of fame and not say anything, and then turn on the TV and there's 6 more murders or there's 6 more shootings. And this idiot, not idiot, let me be respectful, because I always pride myself on being respectful. I don't name call. But this position that the people in leadership is putting us in, if it doesn't get any better, that means it's going to get worse. And so for the police commissioner to say, okay, we're opening up 120 rec centers, and we're going to deploy the manpower to the rec centers. And I'm saying, how long is that going to last? Because you still got a heck of a verdict coming out of the
Derek Chauvin trial, right?
Right, that you have to deploy people. So for you to make a statement like that shows that you are unlearned in the position. That is not a statement you make. And what you do is you have to have the community intimacy involvement. So because you don't, what people is finding out when the DA got on here and say 1 out of every 10 murders is getting solved, you do not have enough manpower to man this city. That's why you're always second to after the event happens. You have to have a plan in order to incorporate the very foundation of people in those neighborhoods that's been there, who can communicate with the people to give the next man 5 minutes or 10 minutes or at least another day on this earth. You can't do it.
So let me say this to you. I feel you when I saw Hania posting about Harley, 11-year-old Harley. When I saw what was going on with Antonio, I saw people on there saying, prayers up. And look, I'm all about prayers, right? But prayer without action, please pray and then do something. Now, here's the other thing that I noticed. Someone who was producing a movie about the violence in Philadelphia got shot and killed, and there was so much conversation about it. I'm saying to myself, is one victim better than the other victim? Like, can we start to humanize these people and figure it out? And I also asked on these last 2 shows that I was on this week, I kept saying, if everyone got out of their houses and just take care of their blocks, we know who don't belong there. We know who is doing what. We know these things. The police department is not going to be able to take on every single thing. We know what's going on in our communities. And if we don't know, we need to start finding out. You understand what I'm saying? Like, we all have to step in and do something, because this is out of control. And I'm sick and tired of us clucking our tongues and going, this has got to stop. Well, what are we going to do about it? How do we make a difference enough to stop it? Or at least slow it down?
What's funny is that we programmed our African-American news anchors to just deliver the news. They used to have some level of civility and understanding, and it used to hit home when something like that happened. Now all we are is a ticker tape that you can read off of and then move on to the next story, and so there has to be, and I'm telling you, you're talking about children, you're talking about if this had happened to somebody prominent, or this had happened to somebody who has influence or has a couple dollars, or some are $1 million politicians, then we would have another level of how to handle this crime in this city right here. And it should not have to come down to that. We should have just as much compassion for the nobodies as we do for the somebody.
Because everybody is somebody. Honestly.
That's exactly right. And that's
everybody is somebody.
Hold on, one other thing. We gave $400,000 out to a few companies who was fighting crime or nonviolence or whatever that is. And the budget for that was almost $3 million. But somebody authorized $400,000 to be dispersed. And they won't tell us to what companies. They won't say, well, where did this $400,000 go? And so it had to have gone to a nonprofit, and somebody had to have had the authority to sign for that amount of money. But why won't they tell us who? What companies got this money so we can begin to hold these companies accountable? Because we can't keep paying for this disastrous situation, because it's almost, we don't know if that money was to help with nonviolence or if that was political money to support a candidate running for office. And so why won't you, under the Freedom of Information Act, we can go and look for that. But journalists' responsibility to us, since we unapologetically black, you should find that out. The station should find that out for us and deliver that information for us, so you can be. Because if not, then you need to apologize about this. Not be unapologetically black and won't tell us who's supposed to be fighting this crime that we just paid $400,000 to. And that's my.
So where did you find the line item for that $400,000? You all are vegan.
It was on the news. It was on the news. That's what I'm saying. It was on the news that this was issued out $400,000. I know the budget's worth $3 million, but they couldn't give it all without having to go through some kind of voting process. But somebody signed off on $400,000 that went to a couple groups to fight nonprofit. It was on every news channel yesterday on the ticker tape. And
they did not say who the groups were.
They did not.
So the Freedom for Information Act says that we have the right to know who these people are and who these groups are. So we're gonna find out. We're
Right. We're gonna find out. And I'm gonna tell you this: if there's any of these hosts that are benefiting from this misery right here, we're going to request that they not host the show, because you can't double dip. You can't be out there getting money to stop something and then be on the air and not using this airwave to stop the same violence that you're getting paid to stop.
Ooh, okay, I'm not touching that.
This is my soapbox. I will hang up
I don't even want to know what that is about. Ooh, Father God. All right, talk to you soon, Prince. Thank you. Oi, what is going on in America? What are y'all out here doing? And this is why I say, when we are accepting money to do certain things, and I don't know what Prince is talking about. I really just don't know. I don't ask these questions, but you always have to stay on the straight and narrow. We're in the news media. There's certain things that tell people I cannot do. We can't endorse anybody. I can't, there's certain things I cannot say and do because it becomes a conflict of interest to me in my mind's eye. And there are other ways for me to make money versus trying to take funding from places where I shouldn't. And you heard me say this around my birthday. I don't even want a penny from anybody. I love you all. You can offer to do certain things for me, but as a radio host, I am taking $0.00 from anybody, because anybody can come back and say, well, when you needed me, I was able to give I gave you X amount of money for this organization that you said you were running, and because you said you could do X, Y, and Z. We have to be very mindful. There's a very fine line there. You are listening to The Source. 96, tell George I'll get him, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. And George done, Prince done raised up George. Lord help me. Say your prayer engines, y'all. We will be right back after these messages.
The Black Words Book Club. WURD Radio's new monthly conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. For April, WURD Radio is partnering with the Free Library of Philadelphia and showcasing their pick for its annual citywide reading program, One Book, One Philadelphia, entitled The Tradition by Jericho Brown. Be sure to listen live, as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it. Tuesday, April 13th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. Livelihood. WURD Radio's new initiative, connecting Black Philadelphians with jobs, entrepreneurship resources, small business development information, and financial literacy tools. Learn more at wordworks.com. That's WURDWORKS.com. And stay tuned to WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
The Germantown Friends School mission begins with a commitment to community and to the belief that academic achievement is in itself not enough. Inspired by Quaker values, GFS encourages students in preschool through grade 12 to see the world as theirs to experience, to understand, to create, and to change. Learn more about the GFS academic, arts, and athletics programs at their upcoming virtual open house, Friday, April 16th, 9 a.m. Register now at germantownfriends.org/admissions.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on WURD Radio. Streaming live on WURDRadio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. Before I take my next 2 guests, which I can see looking just as black and gorgeous as possible right now. All right, Mr. Hudson. Let me take George. George, can you be nice to Mother today? What's going on, George?
I'll be nice like every day and appreciate your guests. You know, I don't even know what they're going to talk about, but if they can come on your show, at least I know they'll be honest. You know, they'll be helpful.
What is going on? What is Prince talking about? Why do I feel like I'm missing a whole something? I unplugged for 24 hours and he's fussing.
Well, the people talked about the money, right? Prince talked about the money, which is true. Now, all you got to do is, like we say, the death hustlers and the extortionists. They knew that money was coming, so when the money came, the first thing they started doing was arguing about who was going to get what. And if you want to know, ask Rebecca Reinhardt. I mean, she know her, and then you ask Rob DeBoe, the finance director.
Okay.
See, what they forget is that they get a check, and you can always trace a check. Very rarely you can trace cash, but you can always trace a check. So that's what Prince had people do, I imagine. He had somebody go and follow the checks, and the checks pop up in all these different names, mainly in the Northwest. The Northwest has the most problems, which they have that elitist-type attitude. But you notice all those council people keeping their mouth shut lately? Ask yourself how much their people get, because they're the ones who say, well, I want this group to get this, I want this group to get that. And it's like the money went down. The African Americans got little of nothing, and the white group got all the major part of the money. So when it comes out, then it's like always like, well, they all argue, but they don't argue when the black group gets 6 figures. They only argue when the part I'm really disturbed about and don't like is that the little groups go out there and do all the work, and the big groups don't do nothing. All the well-named groups, they don't do anything. They just collect a check. Every 30 days, they have electronic deposit, okay? And you'd be surprised how much the deposit is.
Wow.
So you know that's what Prince is talking about. And they
so George, I'm gonna dig into this. I just sent a message to a friend of mine to start tracing those checks for me to see who actually got that money.
Let me say this before I go.
Okay.
It's the same people who be at your neck and laughing and grinning in your face. It's some of the same people who getting some of that money. And all those people who be talking about they're your friend and all that, you know what it is? They want to be your friend because they don't want to be exposed because they know you don't know how much of a crook they really are. But all of a sudden, they got to figure out how can we get her off the air or how can we get her to, like, calm things down, at least till I get my money. That's all everybody worried about, their break off. And Kenny ain't doing nothing but sitting there just laughing. Look at him. Look at him fighting
struggling over everything.
And this is why I will not ever compromise myself around any of this stuff. This is why I always say, don't offer me nothing, don't offer me a penny, don't offer to buy me lunch, nothing. Because the minute you do that, you go down this slippery slope. I still don't know what y'all are talking about. I don't even want to know. Because if it's not good, it's all going to show up in the news. But don't show up in the wash, show up in the rinse. So if it ain't good, it's going to come out anyway. And Martha will be in the corner eating her corn chips, okay? That's all I'm going to be doing. So thank you so much, George. Let me get to my next two guests because, yeah, something crazy is going on in Philadelphia that I am missing and I don't even want to know. Thank you, my brother. Take it easy, okay? All right, bye-bye. Lord have mercy in these Wakandan streets. Today, on our livelihood segment, we have Tony Hudson, president and founder of the Racially Conscious Collaboration, and he's going to continue a conversation around leading for racial equity and justice. We keep having this conversation every week because we ain't got racial equity and justice. We're watching the Derek Chauvin trial right now. You're watching people just falling apart. All of us can't even hardly watch what's going on out here because of the decisions that are made every year in this country and around the black and brown people in the caste system that we found ourselves in. Tony will share how by the time he was a senior in high school, he was a teen father involved in a historically notorious gang, and his mother did not allow him to attend his house. Okay, Deborah, I'm going to have to introduce y'all later. Hold on. Let's talk, son. How are you? I remember when you came on the first time, and I was like, wait, and you told us that at the last second. Spill this story because we're behaving as if, we're talking about all this violence in the city. Talk about how you got involved in the gang to where you are today because you're kicking the game. Sorry, Deborah, I'll introduce you later.
First off, I know you're going to introduce Deborah later, but let me send my sister some love for making the connection between the two of us. Andrew, I've been waiting to come back on with you because your vibe is just, it feels like family. So thank you for. Oh,
you're welcome. I don't play no games. Do you hear me, Tony? None.
Neither do the people I roll with. So game recognized game. I mentioned that at the last piece last time, just because it's one thing for me to talk about, what I've done professionally and, leading as a principal for racial equity, as a school district leader, working with all kind of organizations now doing racial equity work. Mm-hmm. But really a lot of times I think it's people's story that stick with them the most. Mm-hmm. And I was listening last time and I'm like, I haven't really told them who I am. And the black folks I know, we want to hear about what you do second. We want to know who you are first. So that's what came up for me. So yeah, that's true. By the time I was a senior in high school, I was a teen father. I was involved in a gang that I won't mention because it's, national and those things are in my past, but they're also a part of who I am, my past, who I am. And so, I didn't attend my high school graduation because my mom thought I'd be shot walking across the stage. The day I graduated high school, there was shootings across the city, including some aimed at myself and some of my friends. And so when you hear what I'm doing today, being the president of Racially Conscious Collaboration and having been a school principal and having successes in those areas, obviously someone would ask why. So it's not a mistake that I told it that way because I want folks to ask why, because I don't want to forget where I came from. Right. And I know a lot of young people and a lot of folks listen to this station. And so I guess what I just want to have happen is just to be an inspiration for folks and really to break down some of the how. The same how is not going to work for everybody, but sometimes just knowing that somebody that came from where you came from is in a different space, but still appreciating all of the love, all of the positive things that people put in me. And so what I can offer to you is, we don't have forever to talk about it, but places like the Boys and Girls Club when I grew up, right? Those places invite me in, and really just positive adults around me, including mostly my mother, never failing to see the brilliance in me. I think about some of the young folks that I grew up with and what it took. When I was in high school, arguably by my sophomore year in high school, my friends were the biggest drug dealers in the city. And when I think about the decisions that they made and how they managed that, it's not a positive thing in itself. But I don't ever look back at them and say, like, they're somehow better than them. Them brothers were brilliant. I just had the right combination of adults around me who kept pushing really hard on my brilliance, right? And not giving up on me. And that is really the difference. Like, I think about one of the brothers, my guy Tim, that I grew up in. We'd be in algebra class, and he finished the work before I did, and be shooting spitballs at the back of your head. This brother was brilliant. Bored. And so part of what emboldened me later on around education is just that. Like, them brothers and sisters were and still are brilliant people. They just were a part of systems that haven't decided to love Black folks yet.
Yes.
And
it's about to be a good conversation. Let me tell you why, Tony. I have conversations with young people all the time on this show, purposefully, right? About what can they do, what can the adults do to wrap and love themselves around them to keep them out of these kinds of situations. On Tuesday, I don't know if Deborah, you were watching when I was talking to the young people from Bringing Everybody Together, and they were talking about just what you were talking about, Tony, that they have figured out that it was better to just go with the bad stuff because the bad stuff brings them fast money and fast fame. And they've had to, their parents and their community members have been rallying around them to make sure that they don't go down those avenues. What you also said that stuck with me, and then I'm going to introduce y'all and Deborah properly. I just listen, because I just had to get involved. What you also said that stuck with me was this morning, I look on Facebook. Facebook is, there's some stuff coming. I can't even tell you all the things that are coming. But just hold on. And these brothers were riding their bicycles in Washington, D.C. They jumped off the bicycles. The bicycles are still going 100 miles an hour. They run back, each of them jump on the bicycle, get back on the moving bicycle. Then they were doing popping wheelies and had their hands skating, one hand down on the ground. And then they were tap dancing on top of the bicycle while the bicycle was moving. You cannot be anything short of brilliant to do something like that. And because our children learn differently, Tony, they're seen as thugs and they don't sit still in a chair. And so when we talk about racial equity and justice in education, this is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. The average teacher would look at those children and say, you can't do 2 + 2, but you're out here popping a wheelie. Instead of seeing the brilliance in what it would take and the mathematical equation it would take to know this is the right time to go down on your hand and pop the wheelie, and this is the right time to let the bicycle go. Like, use those things to talk about physics and chemistry and math. Does that make sense?
No, there's a reason why, right? So James Baldwin talked about it, that in this country, the idea of becoming American is like how fast you become white, right? And so since that's the dominant in our society, then it trains all of us, and let's just be real, some of us, folks of color, white people and indigenous people, to look for the whiteness in each of us. And our school systems are set up to perpetuate the cultural patterns that are most magnetizing to white people. So when that's constantly what you're looking for, and so for so many of us to survive in the society, we're mastering patterns in white culture, then it blinds you to the brilliance that doesn't have to do with something emanating from white folks. So that not individualism, but that individual expression like that. That's why hip hop is like what it is, like that expression and flexing and all these things. If you weren't looking so deeply for whiteness, you'd see the brilliance that our young people have, and you'd capitalize on that.
Hey, it's about to fall out. Hold on, my father's gonna come running out here. Because it's
look, I don't live out there, so DC is one of my favorite places to come. I've been around Philly as well, and I'm telling you, I've seen them brothers on the motorcycles, and I'm like, that's ill, right? That's ill.
But it wasn't even a motorcycle, it was a bicycle. They were doing this on bicycles. I swear for God, they were literally riding the bicycles, jumped off the bicycles kept going by themselves. I put it on my Facebook page, Tony, so if you're on my Facebook page, go look. They let the bicycles go. The bicycles are going 1,000 miles an hour. They run back to jump on the bicycle, get back on it, and start popping wheelies, and one hand was down on the ground.
Listen, the white folks capitalized on that and made it into something. They called it the X Games.
Seriously.
It's a whole industry. It's probably, I don't know, a several $billion-dollar industry.
Yes, brilliant. And so how do we stop people from co-opting our brilliance? Because that's what keeps happening. But in the middle of co-opting the brilliance, they'll tell us this is not how things are done here. The language, the messaging that we continue to get that stops us from doing and being who we are is astounding. Let me introduce you, because the people are going to wonder, who is she talking to? Tony Hudson is an expert with 20+ years of experience in merging anti-racism and organizational change as a leader of organizations organizations, a doctoral student in organizational change and racial equity, and having traveled across the country for the last decade as a consultant, successfully helping organizations equip themselves with tools and attitudes. His work with organizations like the new NYU Center for Early Childhood Health and Development has been recognized with national awards for anti-racist organizational change. Deborah, as the founder and National Board Governance and Education Equity Consultant for the Right to Keys Consulting LLC, Deborah uses her highly sought-after skills to provide customized, well-developed leadership skills through training for board superintendent teams, delivers effective board governance best practices, creates a thought-provoking, laser-focused board retreats that addresses board conflict and culture, and educational equity versus equality in the public school setting. And she also facilitates conversations about the racial inequities in education. I do this on purpose. People must be saying, well, why does she keep talking about racial equity every single week? Because racism continues to pound on our backs every single second of every single day from the moment we wake up. And nowhere is it more profoundly impactful than in education. When our children hits elementary schools, by the time they get to 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th grade, and then they're told, smart, I've seen brilliant children. I remember a parent calling me, and he's probably watching, because I am unapologetic when it comes to children. The child was so smart, the people at the school district told him he couldn't get into the gifted program because he missed it by 1 point. And 1 point would make all the difference in the world. And I stepped up in there and I said, hey, hold on there. And by the time I got finished with them, he not only got into the gifted program, he's now at Morehouse University taking no names. You understand what I'm saying? But we have to have people that steps into the gap on behalf of our children unapologetically and don't say, well, I don't want to make the white people mad. What? What?
You know, Andrea, that is so key. You know, we have to make sure that those adults who I always remind us can also be the oppressors for these children do not put these kids in a box, you know, not embracing their brilliance because it's not done the way that it has always been or the way they're comfortable with. And so even in the education system with superintendents, and I will ask them, how creative are you allowing your staff to be? Since we know that the books that are in your school system don't even share all of our history, and so and the lived experiences. So how creative are you allowing your staff, your principals and teachers to be when they're engaging these students so that they see themselves represented? You know, that's what makes it relevant to them. You know, they'll all be able to tell their own stories. And that's why, Tony, when you were saying the gentleman was, you know, getting his work done and then spitting spitballs, because, you know, he's accomplished what he needed to, so nothing was keeping him engaged. Right. That's the responsibility of that teacher managing that class. And that's where we hold everybody accountable. Absolutely. Because we have a lot of children who are brilliant. And I did watch that video, and just watching them jump on that bike, even something very simple. I couldn't jump on a bike like that. Andrea, you probably could, since you jumped. You jumped from helicopter, from what was that big
airplane? F-16 fighter jet.
F-16. You jumped from planes, whatever.
Tony, you have no idea.
You have no idea. And she gets in the pit where they change your tires. I'm just telling all your business, girl.
NASCAR,
you know, but just think about what it takes to do something simple that we do. Jumping, doing double dutch. To be the timeliness of that, you're thinking, all of these things, you know, anybody can do that, try it. Not everybody can double dutch either. So we have to tap into the brilliance of these kids, something just as simple as that. Keep taking them to another level.
So let me say this, though, because Tony said something that stuck with me. If I didn't have the kind of parents, and Lord knows my parents were frightened because I was into everything and I had zero fear, and I grew up with zero fear. And so my parents just kept praying and going, Lord, just protect her, because we can't stop her. But they did not discourage me from being my most authentic self. So the role of the family member, it could be a grandmother, an aunt, or somebody that can step up as mentor, is really good. Let me ask you this, Tony. What are the signs that family members, parents need to look out for when a child is being, based on your own personal experience, what are the signs that family members should look out for when a child is becoming disinterested, or when an adult is telling them things that is making them become disinterested? Because every child goes to school wanting to learn, right?
Yeah. I think a couple things. And it's such a combination, right? Anytime we talk about the families, we got to talk about the schools. I used to tell the staff that I supervise as a principal, we have them 8 hours a day. So whether anybody shows up, you still can educate every child. So let's not allow these conversations for us to rightly have about parenting to give some folks permission to engage in racist behavior in education and say, see, their parents aren't. You know what the parents are doing? At the end of the day, we have you 8 hours a day. And that's a long time to make an impact on someone. So, but your question, I think I heard, was what are some of the signs of a child becoming disinterested in school?
Yes.
Well, I think it starts, I'm going to go into a couple ways. So one of the things I used to say is I'm surprised more of our children aren't disinterested. When you walk in school systems that you've been making so far, don't speak to our brilliance as Black folks, brown folks, indigenous people of color. When you walk in those places, and so many of us, white teachers, educators, and teachers, educators of color as well, have been taught and socially constructed ourselves to offer a very white education. It's already disengaging. So my two sons have straight A's, but I told their principal the other day, it's not really because of y'all, it's in spite of the whiteness of the environment.
Right.
So the whiteness of the environment is disengaging when it doesn't speak to, when people are more concerned with whether my pants are pulled up or whether, those kind of things as opposed to my brilliance. I think also though, this is kind of answer your question, but also go back to the root of things as well. If your child from the beginning is disinterested in reading, there's questions to ask of yourself, and there's also questions to ask of the daycare they were at, the preschool they were at, when you had them at your cousin's, house watching them when you was going to work, or when grandma was watching them. So how do you create an environment, even if you didn't have the best academic experience yourself, from jump, everything you could do. I tell my daughter this, right? I have 2 grandkids, everything you could do to model reading for them and reading where they see themselves. So when they're disinterested in that from the beginning, that's a challenge. I think in a whole different realm, there's different approaches I could take to your question. Right. Another is hurt people. So one of the things to be concerned with as well is when my mother and father, broke up, a lot of me be looking towards, gangs and stuff like that was just my pops has always been there in my life, but for some time he was, addicted to crack and other women besides my mother. And it took him a while to get himself clean. But during that time, I looked other places for male role models. And so when a rupture, as therapists say, I've been spending a lot of time training therapists lately. And this language they use about a rupture. Those things are ruptures in our life. And they need to be soothed, and we need healing around them. So when you know that things have happened in your life as a grown-up, those things pass on to your child, even when you're pregnant, like with the child, even when you're fathering the child who's in
utero, yes.
All of those things, when the child comes out, anytime in a child's life that there's been ruptures, family members passed away, something happened, somebody died of COVID, you name it, there needs to be a healing process, right? And so I say that, and it can sound complicated, but you all live in a place with more Black folks than I do. I live in Minneapolis, which is Minnesota, which is an epicenter of racism right now, right? With the trial.
Right.
I know that there are Black therapists there and community leaders, healing leaders, those things need to become a part of our parenting, because just being Black in this country, period, requires you to invest in self-care and a healing process. So when that's not happening, that can get in the way and make a kid disinterested in school.
Let me ask, and I'm going to go take a quick break, but I want you to think about this question. Based on what you just said, I have friends whose sons and daughters are seeing their peers being shot and killed with impunity right here in Philadelphia. They are 12 years old, 13 years old. Mommy and daddy are together, but they're watching their friends riding their bicycles down the street and getting shot. Talk to me about how that kind of trauma can impact a child, even with the parents' best intentions, and what can we do to help that, so that when they get to school, because the school districts will say, well, we have counselors on deck if anybody needs it. It sounds so trite versus we're going to take the first period of class today to talk about what happened and how can we address it. And if anybody wants to deal with it after we have it that first period, then you can come and see the counselors. But they just throw it out there. The average child is not just going to run to the counselor and say, I'm feeling bad, because they have to put up this tough persona like, yeah, my friend died, it is what it is. We see it all the time. hold on to that thought for me about how we think that it's impacted the children, and we'll be right back. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. We will be right back after these messages.
Okay, Her's new fire potato chips and cheese curls, they are spicy. Whew, they're hottest snacks yet. Hold on. Whew. But you know, it's not just heat. There's some nice sweet and savory stuff going on too. Ooh, there's that heat again. It burns, but it burns so tasty. Ooh, that's hot. Find Her's Fire Snacks at your store today. Whew. Taste the flavor, feel the heat, break out the Her's.
Recovery starts with a call. Pennsylvania's Substance Use Disorder Hotline is staffed by real people who are trained to help. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll get you or your loved one into treatment regardless of your access to insurance. If you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, call 1-800-662-HELP. Recovery starts with a call.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Hi, it's me, Gia Peppers. Tune in to More Than That with me live this weekend, or catch the show wherever you listen to podcasts. This week, I'm talking to Lisa Galobter, a renowned technology executive and entrepreneur, Sherelle Dorsey, a data journalist and strategist, and we'll hear from designer, developer, and city planner Winona Satcher. More Than That is brought to you by General Motors. Visit gm.com for more on their commitment to becoming the most inclusive company in the world.
My grandfather bought all of these computers for me and my cousins to be on the internet. And so, the people who taught me how to code and taught me about technology and gave me scholarships, those were Black people, those were Black engineers. So this idea that we weren't innovating in the space meant that somebody wasn't telling our stories. And I was tired of seeing the deficit. And it called for me into question, how do I tell interesting, accurate, and data-driven stories and narratives about who it is that we are?
One of the things that we talk about is how we are hired for diversity, but then managed for assimilation. And so how do you actually retain folks? How do you actually live your values? How do you actually bring those cultural norms to bear at your organization? How are you investing in it? How do you make 15% of your suppliers be from the Black community? It's not about pledges, it's about action. Ally is a verb. It takes proactive, committed, and concerted action.
You always build and march for those yet unseen, right? So those that you might not even know. That's really what this is about. Our futures are determined by our zip code, and that's unacceptable. So we have to start seeing our communities as opportunities for improvement, and as opportunities for revitalization, and as opportunities to say, okay, this is how we want to grow. I think that if we build off the current system, then it is too late. But if we create new systems and new approaches and innovate around how we finance these deals, then it's not.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on WURD Radio. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. If you're just joining us, this is our livelihood segment around racially conscious conversations around diversity, inclusion, equity. And so today we have our normal guest, Deborah Keys Wright, and she brings to the platform national speakers. And today it's Tony Hudson, president and founder of the Racially Conscious Collaboration, who is in a doctoral program, has done amazing things. I believe, Tony, let me just make sure if I have the right, Tony did, Tony, you were the one that was leading a large school district, or were you someone else?
Yeah, I was the director of equity for a school system here in Minnesota. Yeah.
Yes. So before we went to break, this conversation is riveting, by the way. Tony just wanted to let you know he did not drop into a pool of greatness. He had greatness inside of him from the time he was born, lost his way through a little bit of trauma. And if you missed the first part of this, you're going to have to go back and watch it, honey, because it is worth it, through some trauma. And because of that, he has a great lens around understanding racial equity and what that means for the young people that are being served. Deborah is just her usual fabulous self, right? She works with superintendents and school boards and getting them to do what is right. And I have to tell you, if the school boards and superintendents aren't right, everything else is a wash. Let me just tell you, they have to get themselves together in these, we're calling them streets. So before we went to break, I said to Deborah and to Tony Hudson this: if a child in Philadelphia consistently sees violence, even if they have all the good things surrounding them at home, friends are being picked off in the street, what is the trauma that they're carrying with them that parents won't even know until they see signs of it in other ways?
Yeah. So we talked about some of the signs. I kind of want to, I'm still answering that, but I want to switch gears just a little bit. Part of what's coming up for me is I ask why things happen a certain way. So let's just think about this from a space of humanity. So the neighborhood that I grew up in, you know, people always want to compare neighborhoods and stuff, right? I'm not from Philly, let me keep it real. But where there's dope, where there's guns, where there's gangs in neighborhoods, you got the same mix, just on different scales. So I know some friends that died from gun violence coming up. I saw some friends get locked up, and it's traumatizing. We just didn't call it that. So part of why I think it's not called that, in particular when I hear what you say about just indiscriminately hearing of young Black folks getting gunned down, these things, getting locked up or what have you. So why would a city, a state, school systems like not respond to that in the way that we think we should as far as like human beings? And part of it, and this is not to any particular person in city, state, what have you, but nationally, frankly, globally, anti-Blackness is permanent, pervasive, and just an everyday part of our society. And it's the air we breathe. It's the first way that white gets defined in this country as not Black. And so when that happens, it puts it on the defensive, and you have to define, well, what is Black so folks can stay away from it, including Black folks. And it's the internalized anti-Blackness and the elevation of white. It's the interracial between races. It's the inside Black folks. It's the inside brown folks. And, you know, it's also this myth that if you hear too much from Black folks, then somehow that's taken away from, you know, diversity efforts and what have you. So when you look at that, to me, it's all of our internalized anti-Blackness that we can watch our children, my friends, what have you, suffer things that aren't even necessarily happening in war zones, you know, as you all heard, I'm sure, Meek Mill talk about. But I think those things like happen like that because of how we're viewed in anti-Blackness. Secondly, in addressing those kind of things, it can't be like equity as events. Let's get Black folks what they need as an event. Oh, let's get a counselor because that happened. It actually, because this country has a culture of traumatizing Black folks, right? And we breathe that air, you have to have a culture of self-care around just ourselves and community care. So it should be part of the culture of the school system, the city, to have practices that say, in this space, what this organization is communicating is that we take care of ourselves on a daily basis. It's a part of what we do, from breathing exercises to water, to meditation, to making time for therapy, to all those things. It should be a part of the culture. It should be systemic, not as events, because the anti-Blackness is systemic and pervasive. So the intervention has to be just as strong.
Now, you know, in education, a good majority of the people don't look like us, right? Let's just get real in the field. That's just, you know, Mama has to keep it real in the field, right? And for those of us who have made it to the places where we can influence, you're right. You know, they say I've just heard this on the commercial, we're hired for diversity, but trained for assimilation. And it is very...
I'm normal. Who's the diversity?
I don't, child, listen, and color. I don't know when. Don't get me started, Mr. Hudson.
I'm normal. I don't know what y'all talking about.
So, you know, but they put us in these series of constructs, and when we try to explain, you know, or even just simply be ourselves, it comes across as, well, that's not how Black people should behave, or that's not how we will deal with this one over here because their Blackness is something we can deal with. Because that person has assimilated, but person don't realize they've assimilated because they're feeling like they're the ones that are being loved upon and everything is wonderful. I tell people all the time, my mother said this all the time, if they're not talking about you, you ain't doing nothing with your life. So how do we, I don't even know, help me, Deborah, because it just feels like we're constantly turning the wheel, right? Turning the wheel around equity, making sure, why can't folks just do the right thing? Who gains from keeping us as a permanent underclass in this country? Because quite frankly, I'm sitting here with my parents. The 2 days that I spent with my parents felt like 2 damn years. Do you hear me? It felt like 2 years of just getting all the weight of everything off of my body. And I'm talking to them and loving on them. We're picking gungo peas knees were having it's just the simple things. You know what I mean? And so for folks who are not able to, and I can call my sisters, call my mother and father and cry and say, this is not going right. I have a village, right, that doesn't necessarily depend upon the anti-Blackness that consistently surrounds us every single day. And so we know in this country, we're not going to be able to get these folks, listen, we've been having this for 400 years. We've come so far. Derek Chauvin is on trial right now because he held his foot in the neck of a man that he didn't need to hold his foot in the neck of. And there are people who are traumatized. The young man who called the police said it was only a $20 bill. If he could do it all over again, he would have done. People are traumatized and going to be traumatized for the rest of their lives. And there's still folks walking around going, well, Derek Chauvin was just one person, not all police officers. Why do we get into the not all?
Yeah, we get relaxed. We get tired too quick. You know, yes, this trial's going on. It's been a year almost, and I'm traumatized. I cannot watch some of these videos. I have to walk away. And so, again, we have to remember that these kids, everyone watched this man be murdered, okay? And the trauma is still there. And then they have to live in communities that they see this, like Tony was sharing. And so there should be an expectation of the school system who have your children for 7, 8 hours to make sure that they are educating the whole child, care about the well-being, the Maslow hierarchy. You have to make sure the basic needs are there for children. So if it's not the Board of Education, they don't know, they're not thinking of all the things that need to happen. That's why you have to engage your community. The community needs to demand what they want from the education system for their children in the community. And so that's a matter of getting to the board meetings, stating what you need, because you're sending your precious commodities to them every single day. And you will not allow anyone to dismantle who they are as brilliant children. And so holding everybody accountable, saying what you want, and again, hiring a diversity office. I mean, Andrea, we got into this before, you know, no shade on people who have that position, but it's so much more. It's not one person who's usually the whole department. It is everyone needs to make sure that they're focusing on what's best for all children, but specifically the ones who are historically underserved, unapologetically. We don't have to say, well, what about these kids? No, we're saying these children. That's who we're focusing on. And making sure anyone who's engaging or has some oppression type of behaviors, practices, they need to go. They need to be called.
But how do we make that happen, though? Because we know them, we know
we have unions. Exactly. You know, and people protect people just like what we're watching. We know the shield, the blue shield. Yes, there's some teachers who are protected. And this, again, it takes time, but it's about relationships, building relationships with these union individuals. The key thing that we can all say that we can focus on, that we have in common, is that we want what's best for children. We have to assume that, even though, yeah, there's some that we question, but we have to say, do we all want what's best for children?
Right.
And if the answer is yes, then what can you do in your area? What can you do in your area? But we have to continue to do it, just constantly. We can't give up. Right. Because our babies are falling through the cracks. And there's a sense of urgency right now. And I know we get tired, but we have to keep it going because our children are getting the short end of the stick.
All day, every day. Tony, what would you like to add to that? Where's your mama, by the way, Tony?
I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, and I want everybody in Philly to pause. There are Black people there. We all came up from Arkansas, all of that. They have, slaughtering animals there. Y'all like your pork and steak and all of that from Omaha. So North Omaha is all Black, and they look like some places that I've been. I'm just telling you that now. So y'all pause, pump your brakes. We are there, and we are deep, and we've been there a while.
I drove through Nebraska. I didn't see one Black person.
No one told you to roll through Nebraska. I said Omaha. The rest of Nebraska ain't got nothing to do with it. Okay, it's just like when I come through Philly. If I go, too far one way or the other way, I'm like, I don't see anybody around here that talk like Andrea. Like, what happened?
Right.
So I'm saying the same thing. Nah. What I would say to that is I just talk about what I did. And the key piece is do you believe in Black children? And do you believe in their capabilities and possibilities? Do you believe they're born? You know, another perspective is that our children are born with all of the brilliance, right, that they need to survive in the world. It's our job to speak life to those gifts. So when I see folks talking down to kids, even if you're their parents or whomever, it's like they have brilliance and you're blocking that as trying to get out. Everybody has a calling that they're supposed to do in the world. They're just here to live it out, but it takes us to speak to it. So that's step one. Do you believe in them, right? So step two, since I believe in our children in that way, I just went to go study schools that are killing it, that have our children. And guess what I found? There are schools, and I know there's some right in Philly that are killing it with Black children, running circles around the state and other schools and systems. And there might be one principal and there might be one teacher, but they are there. And you know what often they'll tell you? Nobody comes to ask what I do, and I don't have the resources that I need to get it done anyway. So what happens is we overlook is that right under our nose, there's some brilliant principals and teacher leaders that are just killing it with the same kids that the world said can't be educated. And largely what it has to do with is they have the belief. Now, having said that, you can't just pick up what they do at their school and do it at your school.
Right.
They've already started out with a deep belief in Black children. And so for me at my school, I had to have a combination of looking at what it is they did, and then secondly, intervening on the racial attitudes of my staff and dealing with their anti-Blackness to the point where they could at least believe in the children enough to actually implement the stuff that people are doing right down the street that's working for our children. But that wasn't even enough. So as a principal, my building was in the 99th percentile, one of the top in the state of Minnesota. Minnesota is one of the hardest. Minnesota fails educating Black children and Indigenous children more than any other state in the United States besides Wisconsin. So to do that here was really supposedly a challenge. It wasn't necessarily for me. Those are the challenges that I laid them out. But even when I did that, I caught more heat when it happened. And largely it was because at other schools and other educators wondering if they had to do what we had to do at our building. Are we going to have to talk about race like Tony talks about race at their building? Are we going to have to be serious about instruction and all those things as he is at his building? And so a lot of heat. So as I moved into a central office position, what I came to understand is I needed to link with community organizers who are focused on racial equity and education. And that's the only reason why I was able to take that kind of work and move it to the central office level. So we have to have a different power dynamic. And the only reason why we had to have that different power dynamic is because so many of us from all kinds of backgrounds have internalized so much anti-Blackness about our children that we'll watch schools that we've heard of killing it with our kids and don't replicate it. But we do that for white kids all the time. They easily replicate the success for white kids, right? And so starting this company, all it was starting from a belief that I believe in our children. I believe in all of our kids, and I especially believe in Black children. I especially believe in Indigenous children of color. I especially believe in brown children. And so that our work is not a racially conscious collaboration. By the way, y'all got to check out the website. A sister from Philly named Lashia, she's at Muse Media. She created the website. It's ill. Yes. That's raciallyconsciouscollaboration.com. That's raciallyconsciouscollaboration.com. Check out what you see on the landing page. You're gonna see yourself crazy. But our approach is first about building the capacity in educators to have the dispositions and the tools to lead in a critical race theory informed way about education. Listen, this is why the last president banned critical race theory, because he knew that that theory developed by a Black man, Derek Bell, forwarded by a Black woman who out here killing it, Kimberly Crenshaw, was the real deal about really calling in what's occurring in our systems ineffectively. So we start there, and then we place that at the foundation of good teaching and leadership.
Jesus. I feel like I never have enough time to talk to you. I just don't.
Yo, let me do one thing. Shout out to my sister, the new vice president of our organization, Rosalind. I know you listening. Yes. She just sent me something and she said, them two sisters are fire.
Thank you, Rosalind, because we have to keep doing this. How do we collectively take a deep breath? That's the last question that I'm going to ask you, because Tony, you didn't get to where you are. Deborah, you didn't get to where you are without fighting the good fight, right? There are folks who bring us into organizations because we're really good at what we do, and then the minute we show up and really are good at what we do, it's like, oh my God, we gotta, and then they start nitpicking at the things that we do to try to force us out of these spaces, right? So where do we find time to take a deep collective breath so that we can continue to do this work? That is my last question for the both of you. And did you say racially conscious collaboration.com?
Yeah, I know it's a lot of words, but you know, it is.
Yeah, you know, you made me pull up my Hooked on Phonics too. I was like, racially conscious. We'll be right back. Hold on. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. We will be right back after these messages.
WURD Radio congratulates the winner of the 2021 Level Up Contest. Hot off the press. This year's Level Up winner is Anissa Smith of the Black Food and Dessert Expo. As the winner, the Black Food and Dessert Expo will receive a marketing package valued at $5,000, which includes a 4-word small business membership, advertising on WURD Radio, an on-air interview, social media outreach, website acknowledgement, membership to the African American Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber of Commerce for Greater Philadelphia, access to a workshop at the Business Center, and recognition on our partner stations, WVON in Chicago and KJLH in Los Angeles. Learn more about the Black Food and Dessert Expo by visiting WURDradio.com and clicking the Level Up banner. WURD Radio would like to thank everyone who nominated a company or participated in the 2021 Level Up contest. An honorable mention to our 2 runner-up finalists, Dr. Helena Fontes of the New View Institute and Antoinette Coward-Gilmore of Dance for Nia. Be sure to support Black women-owned businesses throughout the city. Special thanks to our sponsors, Bank of America, Comcast, Pico, Keystone First, Jefferson University, and Jefferson Health, along with our supporters, the Business Center, the African American Chamber, and the Philadelphia Chamber of Commerce.
If you haven't had the privilege to use ACAP's products, treat yourself. We made it easy for you to shop for good quality essential products with the help of local businesses such as cultural stores, convenience stores, gas stations, and local supermarkets. ACAPs, servicing the community since 1969.
COVID vaccines are here, and Black physicians and scientists helped to develop them. So I feel good about getting the vaccine. And with new forms of the virus now spreading, I know we need to keep up everything we're already doing. Masking up, keeping that 6-foot distance, and avoiding crowds. COVID's been doubly tough on us. So let's double down to take it down. We can do this. Learn more about getting the vaccine and slowing the spread at cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Want the latest in WURD swag? Check out the shop tab on WURDradio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on WURDradio.com. Show the world that you're all about Black. Talk Media.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on WURD Radio. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. If you're just joining us, this is our weekly livelihood segment with Deborah Keys Wright, and she brings on a national guest. Today it is Tony Hudson, who was just, listen, I like real people. He's right. Game recognizes game, and so I like having these real conversations, but Deborah has always given us real people. I feel like I could just sit and have a tribal luncheon with all of you when COVID abates somehow. I'll fly. Come on out there. We just meet in the central location to do this because you've given us such great conversation around equity, inclusion, looking at anti-racism, anti-Blackness. And I keep doing this every week because I want parents and family members to start to see, if I keep saying it over and over again, what anti-Blackness looks like in a teacher with your child, what anti-Blackness looks like as your child is trying to get into the honors class. You feel something is wrong, or the child is coming to you and saying something is wrong. You're like, Miss So-and-so wouldn't do such and such. Well, you might want to take another look, right? And it's so pervasive in education and in every aspect of our lives that we have to really start to identify it and call it what it is. So my last question for the both of you, thank you so much again for being here. My last question is, because we do this work consistently, I have to do a training tomorrow morning, which means I have to take a deep collective breath, which means being with my family, my parents was just, hallelujah. Where do you find your spaces to decompress so that you can continue doing this work over and again?
Yeah, couple things. One, I just keep good people around me that, I find when I'm stressed in this work, there's a circle of people that I call. A couple of them I want to shout out now. I want to shout out my sister, Dr. Davita Jones, who is a Philly born and bred sister who I worked with in the Treffer Easttown School District up there, a brilliant educator and just awesome person, period. So I just have people like that in my life that I can. Secondly, I just found out that it's important for us, if we can, to see a therapist.
Right.
There are racially conscious, powerful therapists out here. And then every day has to be a practice of self-care. So that's why in the tool that I built that's actually called the same thing as a company, Racially Conscious Collaboration, it has a piece in it called Attend to Emotion, and it's all about being trauma-informed and working in your self-care practices into your anti-racist leadership practice. It doesn't need to be a separate thing you go recover from while you're doing the work. The ability to be anti-racist requires good breathing, requires you to drink your water. I am reintroducing myself to the treadmill, you name it, but it doesn't have to be big things. And so when I'm done with that, relationships are important, those that pour into me, and also just laying myself down and, listening to some NDRE, listening to something, music makes me really happy. Taking long rides in my car, if that's possible, on the bus, wherever, if it's, if it's not safe to do so, what have you, in your bed, laying down and just meditating. It's real. I didn't take it serious until I decided to go see a therapist. Why did I go see one? Because I've seen a lot of stuff in my life, like I told you. And it wasn't anything necessarily wrong, but I went to go see this sister, deeply conscious, shout out to Ken. And one of the things she told me is that just you're living in a world that hasn't decided to love you as a Black person. So of course you need to talk some of these things out.
Yeah.
So I could go on and on, but really just self-care not being an event, but being something that's baked into everything that you do. Small things from breathing, to the big things, to go and see a therapist if you need to. And like my pastor used to say, go see a therapist. And if you're out there and you need medication for what's going on.
Take that too.
Take that too. Just say your prayers, go see your therapist, drink some water. Okay.
Thank you so much. Deborah, what do you do?
Absolutely. I concur with exactly what Tony is sharing, that self-care. This work is hard work, again, and it's heart work. It tugs at your heart. You will find yourself in disbelief of what you hear when you're training people. But again, when we say meet people where they are, the key thing is, are you ready when they show you where they are? And so that self-care is so important, the walks, the meditation, listening to music, just to, every Tuesday from 8 to noon, I have that all year long on my calendar, just blocked out. Just so that that's my time to do whatever I need to do to regroup. But you just have to find some time. And I find when I put it on my schedule, I do it. On my calendar. And so I think this work, there are a lot of people doing this work. I try to surround myself with equity warriors, all the tribes out here. And when you run into those individuals who just don't believe or value what you do, I distance myself. That negative energy has no place around me because there's so much work to do. And we may not see all the fruits of our labor in our lifetime, but I think if we continue to throw those pebbles out there in that water and you see the ripples, then I think we're doing it. Enough people do that, how impactful that will be. So that's why I do the work. It's a passion. It's not really a job. It's my passion. It's so much of who I am. And you were right, Andrea, when you mentioned that, when someone hires you to do the work, then you start doing it extremely well. They're like, whoa, hold up, wait a minute. I didn't tell you to do all that.
You get the wait a minute.
And my experience, and that's what happens. Sometimes people have to push you to your blessing because you have been so committed to doing it and trying to stay within the confines where they're putting you. They push you out to your blessings. And so I say thank you for that. Because I'm free to do the work that I love to do this. So, and I want to shout out quickly just my new website too.
Yes.
It is Write, WRITE, Keys, KEYS, 2, consulting.org. Right, keys to consulting.org. And thank you, Andrea. I always appreciate you
You're
Always
so welcome. Part of this is to make sure that we continue to highlight folks locally and nationally that are doing the work to not only help our folks in Philadelphia, to give them great ideas and tools on how to manage what they're doing as they traverse through this life, because this country, you know, people think that, well, why are you fussing? Until George Floyd was murdered in front of everybody's eyes, I had friends who kept saying things like, well, it's not all police officers and Blue Lives Matter. And we just couldn't get them to understand that there was something happening to Black and brown children and Black and brown people. And so to underscore what the both of you were saying, every morning, I mean, I'm with my parents now, but every morning, and Deborah knows this, I'm either riding my bicycle, I will ride my bicycle to the Blue Mountains if I have to, and I'll hike on Sundays, and all of that is intentional, right? Because when I take care of my body and my soul, then I can take those deep breaths. When I go into these meetings, when I have these conversations with people, I can be unapologetic in saying what I need to. I had a conversation with someone this morning that just made my soul smile. And this is what she said to me. My ultimate goal is not to kill your spirit, because what you do is so important. We want to make sure that wherever you land with us, that your spirit is able to continue to be free. Do you know what that said to my soul? My soul said, yes, honey, yes, I can work with you. But you know, when our souls feel stifled, and we know, right? We feel crabby, we feel uncomfortable, we're like, you know, something doesn't feel quite right, even though they're smiling and grinning in your face. They're smiling in your face, all the while they want to take your place, the backstabbers. I sing too, Tony, I tell you.
Yes, she does.
I love it. I love it.
So, you know, when you find people don't appreciate the gifts and talents that you bring to the table, don't force yourselves on them. And this is for the WURD listeners. Don't force yourself to stay in places where you are not appreciated. Dust off your feet, wish them well, start your own ish, and move on. Literally, right? Move on, because your tribe who are meant for you will be right there waiting for you. I found my tribe in these people. You know, when Rona decided to act a little right, I'm fully vaccinated, I'm confined into both of you. And we're going to sit and collaborate and figure out how do we move this work forward, because until we take our last breath, this is work that we have to continue doing. It just doesn't stop, right? And why you are here on this radio station consistently with me is because I believe that you're compassionate and you understand what is at stake here. That this is not just about, you know, getting your face on television or getting your voice heard on radio, but you're actually out there doing the diggity dang work. Right? So whether you're Black, brown, indigenous, if you're not about it, I ain't about you. It's just as simple as that. Unapologetically. So Tony Hudson and Deborah Keys Wright, thank you both so much. We'll catch up with each other soon. And Tony, look for me, because I might be driving through your corner of the earth this summer. Never know with Mother. I just get up and get in the car and start rolling.
Yes, she does.
Listen, I'll haul and pull up. Have a good afternoon, both of you. It's always a pleasure to see you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Oh, my gosh. Great conversations. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. The next voice you will hear is Congresswoman Madeline Dean and her son. I can't wait to have this conversation. We will be right back after these messages.
Recovery starts with a call. Pennsylvania's Substance Use Disorder Hotline is staffed by real people who are trained to help. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll get you or your loved one into treatment regardless of your access to insurance. If you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, call 1-800-662-HELP. Recovery starts with a call.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Nappy-style hair products are formulated for today's Black men and women's hair, embracing ancestral hairstyles. Come and experience these products: beard oil for men, cream paste, and napping gel growth oil for braids. Go to www.nappystyles.com or The Movement in Mount Airy, 7133 Germantown Avenue, or African Cultural Art Forum, 221 South 52nd Street, or Culture Exchange, 1450 Point Breeze Avenue. Be happy to be nappy.
Hi, it's me, Gia Peppers. Tune in to More Than That with me live this weekend or catch the show wherever you listen to podcasts. This week, I'm talking to Lisa Galobter, a renowned technology executive and entrepreneur, Sherelle Dorsey, a data journalist and strategist, and we'll hear from designer, developer, and city planner Winona Satcher. More Than That is brought to you by General Motors. Visit gm.com for more on their commitment to becoming the most inclusive company in the world.
You know, the people who taught me how to code and taught me about technology and gave me scholarships, well, those were Black engineers. So this idea that we weren't innovating in the space meant that somebody wasn't telling our stories.
How do you actually live your values? How do you actually bring those cultural norms to bear at your organization? It's not about pledges, it's about action. It takes proactive, committed, and concerted action.
You always build and march for those yet unseen, for those that you might not even know. That's really what this is about.
Lifting every voice till earth and heaven ring. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on WURD Radio. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Luis from North, how are you, sir? Hello?
Hello?
I can hear you. What's up, sir?
All right. I just want to touch on some few points you made earlier concerning Prince and George was talking about the money.
Uh-huh.
This is why I hop on town hall meeting, economic meeting.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
There are things in place. You have groups on the ground. Because they don't have fiduciary responsibility, they won't get no money unless someone give it to them.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things I'm meaning by CDFI. We have to go back and understand. Take, for instance, when the Black Lives Matter was marching and they received funding, you had other black civil rights groups, wasn't part of that march, didn't co-sign that march, didn't do anything, but they received a bulk of the money.
Wow.
Because they fiduciary responsibilities, they've been around for years, and they have unregistered CDFI responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Now, take, for instance, 2008, Barack Obama put what? The health care money there.
Mm-hmm.
This year, Joe Biden put what? The vaccine money there.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them bills, we're not looking at it, are gentrification process, meaning that certain entities going to get that money because they have fiduciary responsibility. Now, the black doctors, COVID doctors, had a hard time getting some of that money, and they're legitimate. But look how fast they gave money to Temple a couple days ago. Because Temple has what they call CDFI and fiduciary responsibility. So for us to close the racial wealth gap, and for us to close when we talk about equity, especially economic equity, we have to understand the infrastructure is not in Black America, and the people that know not going to tell us, the banks, so they're not going to tell us. So therefore, because they continue to get our money, and we go out who we want to give it to.
Right.
So now the people that are doing the work, doing the ground, they're being left out.
Right. Yeah,
and that's
got
important
it.
Because all the money is being spread around for us there. You could be doing the work, but if you're not a CDFI or fiduciary responsibility, you have to wait until somebody give it to you, if they ever give it to you. They can promise you all day. You'll never get it because why? They know you're not fiduciary responsibility. And last week, I want to say this. In Martin Luther King book, he put what? Well, where do we go from here? He said the black media has never took on a social responsibility to uplift or freedom fight for their people. They always took on a conservative role when it comes to the black freedom fight. And we have to remember that. And he stated that. So this is why you don't have black media really in the forefront of pushing a black agenda. They more of a conservative role.
Do you think that's the right thing to do?
No, it's the wrong thing to do. That's why Martin Luther King talked about it. They never was never on the forefront of fighting for our people. They should be on the forefront. They should be talking about the black issue. You just had someone on from Omaha, Nebraska. About what? About equity, about putting out there our condition.
Yep.
If there's an anti-black movement, then the black radio is supposed to be what? For the black movement.
Yes.
And this explains why they're never really true. If you come out, someone really talking black, you hear him on this radio station.
Yeah, well, he's black.
No, I'm not saying him.
Oh, okay, got you.
This is what I'm saying.
Uh-huh.
I asked other hosts.
Mm-hmm.
They talking about things that Joe Biden did or the Jim Crow law.
Mm-hmm.
I said, won't you bring Michelle Alexander on that worked for ACLU, but wrote the book as a lawyer on how the Jim Crow laws work and how the Biden thing works. What you're going to hear coming up soon, you're going to hear the Republicans tell with Biden like they did last week, oh, Joe, you hypocritical because you was part of the Southern strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you're going to hear. So if you're going to talk about an issue like you just had a brother and sister on that can define equity and to define education equity and how we get to it, then bring other people on, not you per se, I'm saying, but bring other people on to talk about the conditions and how do we take care of what we're going through.
Right.
Them the people don't get on this radio station.
Yeah.
Them the people are a threat to the nonsense that's being displayed on radio stations. Them people would knock that stuff under the table because it's nonsense. So we need to bring people on that can enlighten the people, that can educate the people, that can motivate the people. Then we can energize the people.
Right.
Thank you,
got it. Yeah. Thank you, Maurice. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right.
All right. Bye-bye. Maurice was spitting all kinds of truth, and he's absolutely right. Congresswoman Dean, I see you. How are you? You're moving.
I'm doing fine. I am on the road. Is the sound? Oops.
So you're going in and out a little bit.
See, I'm going in and out.
Yeah.
Hang on, let's see.
That's all right.
My son is joining us, just so you.
Yes, okay. So I'll wait for him to come on. Let me introduce the both of you. Is he's coming in on a different, because I don't see him yet in the room.
Yeah, he's in a separate location.
Okay, all right. So I'll make sure. Just text him and let him know that we're on right now. We need him to click into the room. Michael, if you see someone else in the waiting room, put them in, please, as Congresswoman Dean's son.
Harry,
hold on one second. Harry. Yes. Harry, say his last name again, Madeline?
Canan.
But, all right, Michael said okay. All right. So let me introduce you to the people, because someone just put on social media that they love when you and I confer. That's because we're actually people that know each other, so it makes sense. Born and raised in Glenside, Pennsylvania, to Bob and Mary Dean, Madeline Dean, Congresswoman Madeline Dean got her start in politics around the dinner table with her 5 older brothers and 1 older sister. She graduated from Abington High School and at 18 won election to serve as a local committee person. Madeline went on to college, and while she and her husband PJ were raising 3 young sons, she changed careers from 2001 to 2021. 2011. She was a member of the English department at LaSalle University, teaching composition, persuasive writing, and rhetoric. With her grown children, Madeline took the chance to enter public service, something she has long wanted. Today, though, Madeline and I are going to talk about a book that she wrote regarding her older. Is Harry your older son?
He's my middle son. I have 3 boys. He's the middle. Okay. He is now 30.
Middle son. Okay. Tell everybody, welcome to The Source. It's always a pleasure talking to you. It is now April 1st. Yes. And so I wanted to get you and Harry in here so we could have this dialogue. Here he is. Hi, Harry. He's a handsome dude.
There's my Harry.
Now, see, I know your mother very well. I've never had the opportunity. You are cute as a button.
Thank you.
Okay. Don't take that.
I'm going to get my whole self together, Harry. I just didn't know you were so cute. So my name is Andrea Lawful Sanders. I have known your mother for a long time. We lived together in Abington, and then I went and married a nerd and moved on, and
Exactly. We're still mad you left us in Abington.
I know, but I am here. But today we want to talk about, so welcome, Harry. This is going to be one of the easiest conversations you've ever had. I am a mother, right? And I love people, and I love having these kinds of conversations in a humane and kind way. So just take a deep breath, because everybody else might give you a hard time, not Marvel. Okay?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You are quite welcome. We're going to have a great conversation. So your mother wrote a book. Madeline, tell us about this book that you wrote. You wrote it together, correct, Harry?
Yes.
You both wrote a book. Okay. What was the impetus of this book? The name of the book, and then tell them the impetus behind the book.
The name of the book is Under Our Roof. And the impetus was that it's a memoir told from both of our perspectives of about a 10-year period of time when Harry was in high school and college, junior high, high school, beginning college, when he was slipping sadly into addiction. And I, as a mother, was trying to figure out what was going on, what was going wrong, what happened to the joyful, bouncing, healthy boy, young man, and the battles that we went through until we finally figured out what was going on, that he was struggling and suffering from addiction. We confronted him, and part of our story is the very good part of the story. We confronted him October 30th, 2012, and said, "Are you ready to get help?" And fortunately, with a single word, yes, he went off and got help. He's now 8 years, 5 months in recovery. And so we were asked to write this book. Harry, you give the other part of the story about being asked to write it and how we came up with the way, our format.
So, Harry, let me ask you this. Did you go to Abington School District?
I didn't. I went to St. Joe's Prep for high school, and I went to Angelet in Wyncote for grade school.
All right. So when did you notice a shift for you that you were slipping into addiction? What started it for you?
For me, it was right at the beginning of high school. You know, it started out with what seemed pretty normal, you know, with my group of peers and friends of, you know, drinking. Kind of drinking in the woods and finding opportunities to start that. And really for me, I'd say pretty early on, you know, I didn't see it as a problem, but I saw it as something that I was really, really drawn to and really focused on finding any and every opportunity. So it started, you know, just on weekends, you know, that's when it was available, and I had more access and a little bit more freedom, but, you know, it pretty quickly progressed into something that I was doing almost every day.
Right. And so is there addiction in your family anywhere else? Because, you know, they say it's in the DNA, right? I was just having a conversation with my mother and father. I'm with my parents, by the way. I'm visiting them. And I hadn't seen them since 2019. And one of the conversations we talked about was that we don't drink in our family because on certain parts of the DNA, you know, grandfather, uncle, you know, we just could see the pattern. And so we stayed away from, you know, what maybe would have become a problem. So did you know then, Harry or Madeline, that there was a DNA, that's something that would predispose Harry to having an addiction issue?
I don't think I realized it at the time. I know that we have a big family and addiction and alcoholism runs through it. I think, you know, part of that for me was our immediate family. So my mom, my dad, my brothers, it wasn't there. It was a little bit further out. And, you know, and also one of the blessings in our family is there's a few people who are also in long-term recovery. So I think for me, part of that was, you know, not knowing maybe what they had been through because, you know, I didn't understand it yet. And I didn't necessarily even know they were in recovery. I just recognized some people didn't drink anymore. And I didn't think into it.
So Congresswoman Dean, when did it become apparent to you that Harry had an issue, and were you in denial at any point of this journey? Her bandwidth is, I don't know where she's traveling to.
I think I was close. Harry, you.
Okay, I know you're being driven, Congresswoman Dean, but you were freezing up all over the place. I'm about to do this interview with Harry. Harry and I are going to have a good old discussion because you're freezing. No, you're freezing.
Now.
I can hear you bare. There you go.
Harry, why don't you?
So my question to you was.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. My question to you was, when did you really fully face this, and were you in denial at any point in time?
I'm sure it's a combination, Andrea. I wonder if you can imagine this. Early on, I was suspicious and worried that this was more than youthful experimentation and adolescence and all that stuff. But then sometimes I was in denial, saying, I'm overthinking this. I'm going to have to go through this with one or more of my children. But in addition to that, it became apparent to me when he was slipping farther and farther away that his affect changed, his friends changed, his interests flattened almost to nothing. The kid that bounced into the school he wanted desperately to go to had to be practically dragged across the finish line. So I was battling with him, drug testing him.
She was drug testing you, Harry? The nerve.
So much for our friendship.
She was what, Harry? And when you were deeply embedded in it, and she was drug testing you, what was your response? Because I want families to hear. See, we make this pretty and romantic, and I was addicted to drugs, and I'm not addicted anymore. There are things that happens in our families, which is why this book is so important. I started reading it, by the way. I have a copy of it. This is why this book is so important, because we talk so much about, and then when you look at it, were there times when you got caught by the police and you were able to come back home to your parents versus being locked up? I mean, did you think about all those things, Harry?
I did. And I think it's important not to, I'm glad you highlighted that, because we didn't want to gloss over, what recovery looks like and what this does to the whole family. It's not just me who was suffering from this. I was dragging everyone along with me. I mean, when my mom was drug testing me, we just constantly battled, and I know that I said really, really hurtful things out of fear because I wanted to hide what was going on.
Right.
And it was such a hard time for all of us, my mom, my dad, my brothers. I mean, just the tension that was in our house, you could feel it. When you walked in, it was something I could sense when the drug tests were coming, because things would get so uncomfortable.
Yes.
It wasn't like, oh, here's a random day.
Yes.
We'll do a test. It was, things were coming to a head, and I knew it was coming. And when that would happen, I would try to stop a little bit. Sometimes I could stop with some of the other drugs, but, I could never stop smoking pot long enough to pass. I would fail for that. But I could see it coming. And when we look at something else that you mentioned, I mean, the privilege that I had in terms of, I was never arrested. I talk about in the book, what I call like the pillars that really kind of held together my freedom. When I was using drugs and I'm, from the suburbs, but running around in North Philly and in all of these other areas, being a white kid from the suburbs, I was met by the police with grace that I didn't deserve, and just constantly given the opportunity. They would just tell me, just go home, just get out of here. And so I never had that legal consequence that so many people have, and so many people of color have in such an exaggerated way, because we're too often dealing with this mental health issue by dealing with it with the criminal justice system, which is wrong. So it was something that I was aware of, and really once I got into recovery, became much more aware of, right? Because when I was caught up in it, I'd say, oh, it was lucky, or it was this, or it was that. But I went and I did, for a couple years, I volunteered at CFCF.
Tell people what CFCS is.
Oh, so Current Fromhold Correctional Facility. So it's the biggest jail in Philly. And I would go into the jail and I would, bring in 12-step meetings, and I would meet with, all these guys in there who, so many of them were in there for a simple possession charge, or these smaller crimes that I could have been caught with any day of the week. And it was through that it was like this, the difference between how people are treated was so clear.
Yeah.
You know, and I was trying to do something to give back, to recognize it, right? In hindsight of how I'm trying to think of how I worded in the book was, you know, I was treated unfairly fair.
The same, and quite frankly, if they could see that this was not, you were not being a criminal, but that you had an addiction issue, that if they had done the same thing for other people, then the criminal justice system wouldn't be where it is today. So I appreciate your even acknowledging that piece, because it helps towards healing, right? When people hear these kinds of conversations. Did you know what your triggers were? What triggered you to start the weekend drinking? Do you know that?
So I think initially it was just this, you know, sense of fun and, you know, maybe some adolescent discomfort, right? Wanting to fit in, wanting to be a part of. But really, as it progressed, I mean, triggers were anything and everything, right? Like by the end, you know, if I was happy, I used. If I was sad, I used. If, you know, I had some family event to go to, I used. If I was just home alone, I used. So those triggers just became everywhere around me. But, you know, earlier on, it was really, I guess, this mix between normal, being a teenager, you know, trying to have fun and fit in, but also this underlying sense of discomfort, you know, of feeling like I didn't fit in, or feeling like, you know, I wasn't enough. Something
so
like
let me ask you this, because middle children tend to always, I'm telling you, that middle child syndrome, because you have the two bookends, right? The baby and the firstborn, and there you are in the middle. Just, I had a conversation with a friend of mine who says her middle child is starting to do things like, you know, he's getting in trouble, and she said when she asked him, what's the deal? He said, because everybody else is getting this over here and that over there, and I'm kind of just in the middle trying to fit, and he's uncomfortable, and he doesn't feel like he fit anywhere, and he's 9 years old. And I said, now is the time to begin having those kinds of conversations. So this is why you and I and your mother are talking, right? Because we want to deal with these things. So Madeline, you know, it took courage, took guts, right? You're a sitting congresswoman. What made you decide to write the book with Harry at this point?
You know what, the idea came to us from my older son, Pat. His older brother. He had written a book about his years in the Obama administration, and his agent came to him and said, maybe you'd like to write another book. And he said, no, I don't have another book in me, but my brother and mother might have a story to tell. So it was literally Pat who asked us. His agent visited with us, and about doing it and doing it now. That was a consideration. First of all, when we heard the idea, we said, yes, that sounds really good, because we think maybe by saying this happened under our ordinary roof, it can happen under anybody's, and maybe we can do something to offer hope, tamp down on the shame, the stigma, the unequal treatment of folks who are suffering with mental illness. But timing was important. If this idea had come to us and Harry was newly in recovery, and I say really the family was newly in recovery, I don't know that I would have been so comfortable exploring that. I also think it took us time for Harry to get stable in recovery, but also for us to heal. And the book was also very painful, but healing in and of itself. So by the time this came to us, I was not yet in Congress. Harry's almost 6 years in recovery. And that was one of the questions, you know, sort of we asked each other, Harry, are you ready for this? And Mad, you know, what, if any, impact will this have on your work?
Yeah, you know, Harry, let me ask you this, because it took a lot of bravery for you too, right? You could have easily said, look, I'm in recovery. I'd like it to be as private as possible. What are the lessons that you're taking from this, A? And B, what advice do you have for parents with children who may be right on the edge of going over and they see the signs? What advice can you give them to help pull their children back from the brink of disaster? You know what I mean? Would you encourage family members to talk to their children candidly about addiction in the family? Would you encourage them to pay attention to the small things, tell me the signs that they're missing, all of that? I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to give you a little time to marinate on that, you know, and then you can answer it. Hold on one second, okay? You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. We will be right back after these messages.
Mike, how's your day going?
I'm having a great day. I just bought property on bidforassets.com.
What's Bid for Assets?
It's the new way of buying property from the sheriff's sale.
I've been meaning to buy some real estate. How can I get involved?
Register for free to make a deposit and to participate in the upcoming auction on April 6, 2021 at bidforassets.com. They have sold more than 125,000 properties with a simple and easy process. Now it's your chance to buy property. Visit bidforassets.com.
Philly Peace in Progress nonprofit organization was started to create a positive change and bring awareness to the growing drug and gun violence in Philadelphia. Philly Peace in Progress is looking for volunteers to make a change with organized programs, mentoring, problem solving, conflict resolution, and more. If you are interested, email Nelson at phillypeaceinprogress.com or call 267-529-7255.
You probably heard it before, but one of the best ways to stay safe from COVID is by avoiding crowds. That's better. Also, when you're out in public, make sure you stay 6 feet away from strangers or people you don't live with. It's okay to say, "Can I have some space, please?"
Well, it's going to be a beautiful sunny day today, and we can expect much.
If you're gonna have a get-together with friends and family, have it outside. And remember to keep those 6 feet of social distance. And last but not least, wear a mask that covers your nose and mouth with no gaps. They slow the spread of COVID or new forms of the virus called variants. And make sure you get your vaccine when it's your turn. We're all out here trying our best, and it's making a difference. We just gotta keep it up. We can do this.
To learn more about slowing the spread, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on WURD Radio. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. If you're just joining us, I have on the line with me Congresswoman Madeline Dean and her son, Harry Kuhn-Main, and we're talking about this book that they co-wrote together called Under Our Roof, which talked about a period in time where Harry was addicted to all sorts of things, and what they did as a family to pull themselves together. It's a great conversation. I like Harry. I do. I love young people. So Harry and I were just talking about if anybody messes with him, pick up the phone and call Marva, and I will appear out of nowhere like a phoenix in the night. I'm telling you, you don't mess with young people when it comes to me. And so tell us now quickly, we'll talk about how you can find the book in a little bit, but what are some of the things you think family members should look for in young people, Harry? And I'm asking you specifically because we tend to ignore, right? My youngest son, I found a bottle of alcohol under the sofa one day. And this is the first time I'm actually openly talking about this. You see what you did to me, Harry? You got me talking about these things. And I said to him, "What in the Sam Hill?" And it turned out his brother had gone to college. He didn't know how to manage. And so it was a weekend thing. But I was able to address it so it didn't become anything else. You see what I'm saying? What I ended up doing was sending him on a train up to the college with his brother. His grades improved. He was much better. His brother was talking to him every day. And he too felt like he was in his brother's shadow, even though he was the youngest, because I only have two. Lord, my eggs I couldn't do any more eggs in these Wakanda streets. Just could not. So, but I hear you. I hear you. So what are the things that we should look out for as parents and not shut our eyes to?
I think the first thing is, what you were just talking about, is having really open conversations with our kids about what this looks like, and talk about if it runs in the family and it's in your genes, you might have a higher likelihood of being predisposed to having a substance use disorder and becoming addicted. To talk about that openly and to talk about it in a way that you're looking at it as a disease, right? You're not looking at it as something so shameful. Because I know, within our family, we talked about it, but I still, you know, and it was a different time, right? Then I think we've made a lot of progress as a society. But there was so much shame surrounding the idea of being an addict, you know, struggling with that. So I think if we talk to our kids about it and let them know that, you know, God forbid they start to recognize that there is a problem, that's okay. And they can reach out for help and not feel like they have to be ashamed or afraid of just letting other people know what's going on and what's going wrong. And I think, you know, in terms of parents watching their kids and trying to see what's going on, I mean, parents have a sense, right? I know my mom talked about it a lot in the book of she knew something was wrong and she maybe couldn't pinpoint it, but trust your gut. You know, it's your
Come on, Harry, you better say it. Tell them again. Yes.
But it's true. You really, as a parent, you got to trust your gut, you know, and understand that, you know, your child. And if something's going on.
Okay. Go ahead, Harry.
Did I cut out?
Yes. I was like, you just kind of froze. You said if you know your child that if something is going on,
then just work to get to the bottom of it, you know, and keep going. And sometimes you're gonna stumble, you know. I know in our family, we wrote about that in the book. You might not figure it out on the first try. Kids can be sneaky.
Yeah.
But if you stay on them and, you know, keep trying to pin down what it is and just continue to allow the conversation be focused around, it's okay. Open up. Whatever's going on, we can get through it.
Yes.
But we've got to.
You know, Andrea, I want to tell you something from my perspective. What was very painful, and I really didn't fully understand it until we went through the process of the book, was that really where some of the genesis of this was in Harry, his using, were his childhood fears. And it's so normal to have childhood fears, but it broke my heart to read about his childhood fears that he kept to himself. And how sometimes that escalates and met his predisposition and met the disease of addiction. And so we actually, at the same time, we have put out a children's book called You Are Always Loved. Our publisher wanted to do something to speak to children about the issue of addiction, even though it doesn't literally use the word addiction in it. But that notion that it's normal to be afraid. It's normal if a parent, for example, goes away for treatment, goes away for incarceration. The child thinks it's something wrong with me. So we have this children's book, You Are Always Loved, to address those. My side of the version of the book is I wanted to address childhood fears. Say it's okay to talk about them and know there is a constancy of love, even though, because as Harry got farther and farther into his addiction, he was so hollowed out by addiction, so filled with shame. He knew he could have died, and he thought that might be the only option. I mean, how horrendous is it that you would suffer those kind of fears and not feel that you could ask for help. So we want people to be able to ask for help. You'll be surprised who wants to help you.
Right, agreed. So one of the things, and I love this conversation, we have to say goodbye in like 3 minutes, but that's okay. Harry said something that made such great sense to me. I got a lot of flack about this when my children were younger, which is probably what saved them from going down a path of craziness. When they were about 7 and 9, 10, I said to them, we're going to start having family meetings. Anything goes in this family meeting. You don't have to fear getting in any trouble. And what I inadvertently did was created a space for them to talk. And they would say, and I would know when they're going to tell me something that's going to make my hair curl on the back of my neck. They'll say something like, we're not going to get in trouble, right? And they would test me. They would test me with the small things. And once they realized that I wasn't going to punish them if they had to make some reparations or do something different, or they would have to do that, but I didn't judge them, come from a place of judgment and craziness. So when they struggle, they call me You know, even to this day, they're 29 and 25. When they're struggling, they pick up the phone and call me. And so what I thought was parenting has no manual, Harry. I'm just letting you know. And so what I thought was, let me just work this out, try to be the best parent I could be, turned into something that was magical for my sons, right? So when they're dealing with things, when they had things to talk to me about, I would say, you can talk to me about anything. And then when they were ready, they would talk to me, right? Which is what keeps them in a great space. So how can we find this book? Because I can't wait.
I love that family meeting. It's not too late for me. It's not too late.
Not too late for you, literally. And when they come and they say, this is what I'm going through. Let's say Harry calls and they say, listen, I am not using, but I had this urge today. Not for you to get frightened and go, oh my God. You go, oh, okay, let's talk about it. You know what I mean? And so Harry will feel like he has a safe space to have that conversation should that happen. Because when you're addicted to something or anything, the urges come back every once in a while, right? We don't want to walk around and pretend like it just magically disappears and we're in a land of tulips and frulips and everything else. So I know your mother warned you, Harry. She warned you, but you were not ready.
Warned, but did not prepare.
So you got to come back and talk to me because we're going to talk about the children's part of this book. How can they find the book?
Harry?
So both books, Under Our Roof and You Are Always Loved, are available online and really anywhere, your local bookstore, anywhere that books are sold, you should be able to find it.
Okay, I do. I have a copy. The children's book. I'm going to gift it to a friend of mine. So I just can't thank you both enough. Please come back and talk to me some more about it when we have some more time. See, Harry, I told you this was going to be the easiest interview you ever had in life. Harry Clemane and Congresswoman Madeline Dean, thank you both so much for discussing Under Our Roof and You Are Always Loved, two books that you co-wrote together about addiction and families and what that means for you. Blessings to the both of you. We'll talk soon, okay?
Very great.
Thank you.
God bless you. See you, Andrea.
All right, bye-bye. See, this is how interviews should be. People should feel comfortable and happy and, not feeling like they're being all stressed out in an interview. This is a beautiful thing. Michael, we probably have 2 more people in the waiting room. Hold on. Tyrone, let me take Tyrone. I think you better call Tyrone. Colin. Hi, Tyrone, darling.
Hello, Mother Earth.
How are you?
I am wonderful, and I'm feeling you. I know you are loving where you are.
Man, Tyrone.
What did you say?
Oh, bring them in, Michael. I didn't realize how much I needed to see my parents and hear their voices. And my mother's making fish for me and ackee and saltfish and green plantains. And we're outside talking to the birds. And my father and I are picking gunga peas off the tree. And I didn't realize how much I needed this. And I'm sitting in it right now. So this is good. Oh, the 2 fabulous brothers are on. Hurry up, Tyrone. I got to go do what I need to do.
Well, Mother, your words are glowing, so I can understand. But I was calling because of your conversation about the Upward Bound program.
Yes.
I was in Temple Upward Bound, and I definitely think it's what saved my life because at the time I went into Temple Upward Bound, I was a gang member. And
so you were a gang member too. All these conversations I'm having today are folks, and this is why we cannot write off our people, our young people.
And the thing is, the first night that I went in, my best friend was killed. And another gang came in and shot him down. And I left the program to go out on the corner, and thank God that situation happened because I had an altercation with a police, and he gave me an opportunity to go back to Temple
instead of being locked up. Wow. Tyrone, I got to take these 2 guests, my love. Can you call Mother back on Monday? Love you, man. Talk to you soon.
Love you too.
All right. Bye-bye. Tyrone, see all these great stories, and this is what we're here for. We're here to talk to the people, for the people, with the people, and by the people. Yeah. Philip Hamilton is an experienced trial attorney and litigator in the areas of complex state and federal crime defense, civil rights actions, and contractual formation and disputes. And Lance A. Clark is an experienced trial attorney and negotiator in the areas of federal and state criminal defense, white-collar defense, parole defense, and civil rights, where he has represented various companies, executives, and high-profile clients in his practice. Man, now let's get to this right here, because good afternoon, gentlemen. I heard you raised all your money after talking to Marvel.
You know, we didn't just raise the money, we raised it in 48 hours.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. We raised over $6,000 for an initial goal of $5,000. As Lance noted, we got that in 48 hours. We were then able to distribute over 21,000 diapers to some of the neediest families in Southeast Queens, but also throughout the course of New York City. So, you know, we are thankful for all those donations that came in, for all of the mothers and families that we were able to help. You know, couldn't have done it without some of the publicity that we received, including from you, Andrea. So, you know, thank you.
Quite welcome. Listen, Marva has the magic touch.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. You're a blessing.
Didn't hurt that you all had the people going, Lord have mercy, Lord have mercy. And that darn Mary Lou sent me a picture. Oh, look, I had lunch with them. I said, I don't want to see that picture. Don't want to see that picture. I need to be at the next luncheon with y'all when you come to Philadelphia.
Well, we're planning on it soon. We're going to try to make it a monthly thing.
Well, please let her know that Marva needs to be invited to the next luncheon, okay?
You got it.
All right, there you go.
Okay. All right, so listen, we have a little bit of time, and what I want to discuss today is the trial of Derek Chauvin. We are so traumatized by what we are seeing. Explain to the people why he's being charged with second-degree murder, third-degree murder, manslaughter. What is the impetus behind that? And what is the defense hoping to get from charging him with all those things in the community, you know, from killing George Floyd? I'm so traumatized by this foolishness. It's so crazy. We don't get a break in this country.
No. I mean, we hear you, Andrea. So, you know, interestingly enough, Lance and I have both been covering this matter pretty extensively for ABC and some other outlets. So in regards those charges that you asked, just to kind of start, you know, Chauvin is charged essentially with a number of provisions of Minnesota's criminal statutes that don't require intent behind the act of committing murder, right? So he's charged with second-degree murder, which kind of colloquially we are all familiar with as felony murder. That's Minnesota's felony murder statute, meaning that in the course of committing some other criminal act, some other felony, which in this case was the assault against Mr. Floyd, he ultimately killed Mr. Floyd. And even though it was the same underlying act, in Minnesota, you can be charged with felony murder for the underlying crime that you actually committed, even if it's not some separate crime, right? So that's where he's charged with the second-degree murder. With respect to the third-degree murder, that in large part has to do with just his depraved indifference and just flat-out negligence in regards to Mr. Floyd's life, the disregard that he showed towards Mr. Floyd's life, and his inability to act reasonably in that moment, as frankly, none of us would have had our knees on the back of his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, and shortly much less than that. But to the extent that his knee did remain on Mr. Floyd's neck for any amount longer than was necessary, I don't see where it was necessary at all, but whatever, to the extent that he wants to make that argument as a part of his defense, that's ultimately why he's charged with the third-degree murder, because he just didn't show the reasonable, he didn't act reasonably in that moment when actually he was just showing a depraved indifference to Mr. Floyd's life. And then lastly, of course, he's charged with second-degree manslaughter, which in every regards has to do with just, again, not showing Mr. Floyd the duty of care that was deserved in that moment of his life that ultimately led to his death. So all non-intentional acts, even though I think always, frankly, there definitely could have been the argument that this was an intentional murder as well. Anybody that leaves their knee on someone's neck for 9 minutes, 29 seconds, to sit up here and say that that's not an intentional act, or that you didn't intentionally mean to, you know, take that man's life. You know, I personally just, I don't agree with it. And I think that that was a systemic error, but whatever, here we are. And those are the natures of the charges that he's charged with.
Okay. So Lance, here's my question. Can you be found guilty of all three of these things at one time, or do they have to find you guilty of just one?
Well, he's charged with 3 separate offenses, so he just needs to be proven, you know, guilty of one in order for him to be convicted of the crimes. But the thing is, this is great for the defense, because you would want to, you're probably not going to win with the felony murder. You're probably not going to win with the third degree. Mm-hmm. But what you do is you try your case as a defense attorney and say, you know what, my client messed up. He shouldn't have done this, but he didn't do this big thing, and then it allows them to, like King Solomon, split the baby. It allows them to say, he is guilty. Let's just find him guilty of the lesser, offense as opposed to the higher offense that would guarantee more time in prison. And as defense attorneys, we try to do this all the time. We try to get lesser included offenses for the jury to consider, because then there are some cases where your guy may go down for this offense, but you want to be able to convince the jury and explain to the jury that yes, he's guilty of something. It's just not this. It's guilty of that. And if you're the party of believability, if you're the party of that's reliable, then they may take that for what it's worth and then convict your guy on the lesser offense.
Wow, this is crazy to me. I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to ask you, how prepared is Minneapolis for this verdict, in your opinion, as two Black men, right? Because I don't think, and this is just Andrea, radio show host, talking, I don't think if they find him guilty of anything other than second or third degree, even third degree murder might be a little iffy, that this whole country is going to erupt again. So let's talk about it's great that the defense has this in place, and that if they're able to convince a jury is one thing. But based on the emotion that I'm seeing happening here, I need to figure out how prepared will we be, and what advice would you have for people as this trial comes to an end? Give me a second, okay? You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WURDradio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we will be right back after these messages.
The Germantown Friends School mission begins with a commitment to community and to the belief that academic achievement is in itself not enough. Inspired by Quaker values, GFS encourages students in preschool through grade 12 to see the world as theirs to experience, to understand, to create, and to change. Learn more about the GFS academic, arts, and athletics programs at their upcoming virtual open house, Friday, April 16th, 9 a.m. Register now at germantownfriends.org/admissions.
Hi, this is John.
Hi, this is Juanita, owners of JD's Auto Body and Painting. We're located at 6300 Wayne Avenue, right there at the intersection of Wayne and Washington Lane.
We really like to thank all you WURD listeners for the support that you've given our business, and we really hope to see you in the future.
JD, tell them about our products and services we have.
We have a new state-of-the-art paint shop along with our body shop and detail shop. We can help you with the dents and scratches from the winter season.
Come to JD's Auto Body and Painting. Come on out and check us out. We're still honoring that WURD 10% discount. Give us a call, 215-848-5949. Again, 215-848-5949.
Thanks again for supporting our business. We really appreciate you.
See you at JD's Auto Body and Painting.
Family Therapy Vignette Moments with Dr. Lucille Ijoy.
Are your children getting on your last nerve? And they do know where your last nerve is. This time of taking flu shots and getting testing for the virus and making decisions on which vaccination you should take. You may be all stressed out. Yelling at children and young people and hitting them will not accomplish the goals that you want. Here are a few thoughts and suggestions that are nonviolent and will bring you peaceful results in your family relationships, especially during this pandemic time. Lower your voice as you speak. Sing songs like BB and CeCe Winan. Lord, lift us up where we belong. This may lift your spirit. You may want to be alone and just think sometimes. Just got to get by yourself and think. The children are watching. They too are grieving COVID-19. 500,000 people. Many of us will remember. 500,000 people. We will remember this for years to come. Yes, we must learn to breathe again.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on WURD Radio. Streaming live on WURDradio.com and the WURD Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. If you're just joining us, this is our final segment, and we have on the line, which we'll have every first Thursday, Lance Clark, Esquire, and Philip Hamilton, Esquire. I call them the two cool brothers. We're going to have to find another name for the segment. But they were introduced to us last month around the work that they're doing in their Black and Brown communities and giving back in such a good way. And thank you all on WURD Radio, those of you who were responsible for helping to help them raise the $6,000 to buy those diapers so they were able to distribute them in New York City. That was wonderful. Thank y'all. Y'all make a sister look good in these Wakandan streets. But we were talking about the Derek Chauvin trial, and quickly, what should we expect as this trial comes to a close emotionally? What emotionally should people expect, in your opinion, based on the things that you see happening in America with us, for us, by us?
America is America.
Well, dang, Lance.
I couldn't answer it better. I think logistically, for the purpose of this trial, this is what the expectation should be. Having been watching this pretty much gavel to gavel, the defense in this case, they knew going into this case that they had basically an impossible hill to climb. I'm not so much, to be frank with you, from a Black American standpoint, I'm not really so much worried about an acquittal. I'm going to be frank. I mean, maybe, he gets acquitted on the second-degree murder, but it probably will play out the way that Lance said. He's at least going down on the manslaughter. But really, in many respects, there's a good chance he goes down on the second-degree murder. Here's where the issue has to come in terms of how we think this through emotionally, how the city of Minneapolis prepares itself, how we as Black people prepare ourselves for a potential conviction. If he's convicted of the second-degree murder, right, which is the top count, Minnesota, no different than the federal government, has sentencing guidelines, right? And if he's sentenced on a second-degree murder charge, just with a lot of the acumen that he's coming into with this case with his pedigree, he's probably looking, as a first-time offender. He doesn't have a prior record, no prior felony record. When you start to add all those things in, he's looking at a sentence probably somewhere around 12 and a half years. Of course, the judge could ultimately, upwardly depart. But, the community kind of needs to be ready for the fact that this man's most likely not going to go to prison for the rest of his life. Right. It's never going to be proportionate to the act of taking Mr. Floyd's life. But I think that's something that emotionally we have to start preparing ourselves for. Not necessarily that he won't be convicted, but legally what the sentence will be. And, that's a talk that I think we need to start having more as a community in terms of preparing ourselves for, but also in looking in different ways to kind of like actively, engage state legislatures and the federal, Congress to maybe change some of these laws so that they are not so lenient when police officers run afoul of the law.
That's a great point, because the law is always lenient when police officers commit a crime, but it's never lenient when people that look like us commit minor offenses. Now, you can take a man's life and face 12 and a half years in jail, but God forbid you participated in a drug conspiracy where you were a low-level offender. You're looking at a mandatory minimum of 10 years, and you're charged with what everyone else did as well. And these are the systematic racist laws that have been implemented in our society that affect us. And this is why we see people that we know are mass incarcerated for a long period of time who committed offenses that by all means are not as severe as the one we're discussing now. But then you can very well talk about this particular offense where a man's life was taken. And I think, I've never seen the entire video because I try to stay away from Black trauma as much as I can, as well as when I, talk with my kids. But I don't think that we've seen someone murdered on television before. 9 minutes, the strength that it took for that person to hold that phone for 9 minutes, it's a lot, it really is a lot. And when you said that you were, traumatized by it, this is what the entire world is feeling and the country is feeling. So, if I was the prosecutor, I would be telling the jury, don't, base a decision on emotions, but on the facts. But how could you, you saw what you saw. We all saw this thing.
All right, I have a few minutes left, so I want to segue into, you want to talk about vaccinations and what's happening in the communities. Now, see, you're going to start me up again, because I'm telling you, I had a fight with the city commissioner, the commissioner, Dr. Farley, and the mayor, because of all the white folks jumping in the lines, the Black doctors, COVID-19. So it's just terrible. Go ahead.
This is what I would say. There are a lot of people of color who are apprehensive about taking the vaccine. And, you know, we have every right to be fearful of our government based on past experiences. But what I think may be different with this situation is when you go into predominantly brown communities, the line for the vaccine are made up of people who are not, you know, representative of that community. You have people coming from all different states to come get this vaccine, but the people that live there are like, I don't want to get it. It must be something good with this thing if, you know, these other people are driving 2 hours and standing in a line for an hour and a half in the rain to get this vaccine. Now, I'm not here to tell you what to do or what not to do. What I am here to say is, you know, any decision you make a conscious decision based on facts. And, you know, when you say based on science, it's unfortunate that based on science is now a political term. You know,
right?
Who knew, right? But I would just tell people, just base it on facts and science and what's best for you and your community, because at the end of the day, it's socioeconomically disenfranchised people that look like you and I who are the most adversely affected by this, you know, by this disease, and we're the ones saying, I don't want to take it. But the people who are not as affected as us are saying, ooh, I'll take it. What does that tell you?
I mean, you know, I told Andrew, I told Lance, you know, whenever I went to go get my first shot, in the area of the Bronx that is not in any way gentrified, okay, at all. And I picked that site in particular because I felt like maybe the line wouldn't be around the corner. But when I got there, it literally looked like the Sundance Film Festival, and you know, the line that was just, you know, all these posh Upper East Siders, you know, all these people that had like kind of come in from the Hamptons that still had their second address in New York City that qualified to be able to go to the Bronx. It was the place to be. It was the posh spot, the vaccine line. And it just made me sad, right? Like that when I go in there in an area that's predominantly Black and Latino, and I'm one of the only Black people, you know, waiting in the area post-vaccine, it goes to Lance's point. Clearly, you know something going on to the extent that the neighborhood's not even gentrified yet.
But here they come, right?
It's white people, you know?
Stop letting these people play you. And you know, and that's what it is. You know, sometimes, you know, we as people, we get too woke that, you know, nothing is fun now. You know, first you were not woke, then you become woke, and then you judge other people for not being as woke as you, and then you oppress it in yourself. All these woke people are just oppressing their community by, you know, putting their beliefs on other people who are now acting adverse to what really is beneficial for them. And that's the thing we have to address within our own community. Okay, brother, you read that book. I'm happy for you. But, you know, at some time, when Malcolm X said, at one point, there was something that you didn't know.
Right.
But you know now, at some point you didn't know. So you can't criticize other people because they don't know what you think you know. And if you're fighting against oppression, how are you oppressing people that look like you in this fight against oppression? And that's the problem. You know, so many of our people are looking at social media and saying, well, look at the Tuskegee. That is true what they did with Tuskegee. It is true what they did with the, you know, the Native Americans. All of that is true. But it does not mean that you are going to make this decision that will affect your life and your community's life based on what? What someone tweeted? What someone posted on Instagram? We have to do better.
There's a lot of misinformation floating around the website, around the World Wide Web. And so I'm very, very careful. I tell people this all the time. Make the decision for you, but don't try to make it for other people. So I give them exactly what the Center for Disease Control is doing. If you decide that you don't want to take the vaccine, that's totally up to you, but don't tell people what they can't do. And the same thing, like I told them, I said, look, I took it. I'm here with my parents. They took their second shot recently. I want to make sure they were okay. My parents are elderly people. I followed all the research from Dr. Ayla Stanford, who runs the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium, and I did what was best for me and my family. Everybody is vaccinated. My mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my mother, my father. Listen, we were hunting down.
I'm going right now. And the only reason why, and for you, I was like, I have to do Andrea's show. So later, and then right after this, I'm going to take this suit off and run up there to wait out.
Come on. And then we now can say, because I also get a text message from the CDC every week. How are you doing with your vaccine? And I'm now 8 weeks out from getting my second vaccine. And so they're like, every week they send me, how are you feeling? So they're taking data. That's the other thing. We have to participate in the data trials, right? And this was just me answering, am I sick? Do I have a fever? Have I had any COVID-19 symptoms since I took my vaccine? I answer all these things, which helps them to decide on the efficacy of the vaccinations, right? And so, you know, I tell folks all the time, do you You just don't get the choice to make this decision for me to do what I need to do. And if we're watching that so very few people are continuing to get sick from this, that the numbers are spiking because folks don't want to get vaccinated and they're running out there, or they're getting vaccinated and just going buck wild, taking off the mask, everything with the variants that are running. We have to be sensible in our conversations and how we manage and do things. So, gentlemen, it's a pleasure. I'm going to need you to go get your vaccine, Lance. Yes, so I can talk to you. And Philip, you already got your first one, correct?
We good, yeah.
You good in these Wakandan streets. Okay, so because when you all come back to Philadelphia, let me know so that we can all sit down and talk about some other stuff, because I have some young students too who are thinking about becoming trial lawyers, and they're being discouraged, dissuaded, in school, in high school, you need to take certain subjects, you can't do this, you can't do that. And then when they see brothers like you, who are doing the darn thing, or I had a gentleman on that started his own equity and inclusion corporation that ran high schools and ran parts of a district that was a part of a gang, right? And I keep telling them, do not allow how you start to determine how you continue and how you finish. And so you all, let me tell you, people think I am just doing this out of the tip of my head. I am purposeful in who comes on this show. You understand what I'm saying? Because our people are told consistently in this anti-blackness that we can't do this and we can't do that, and we're this and we're wrong and we're all sorts of things. When I pull people like you guys on here, it shows what is possible. So thank you to the both of you. I'll catch you first Thursday of next month, okay?
Yeah, just one thing you tell those students, I'm grateful for everyone who told me no, because of them I did it by myself. That's something no one can ever take away from you. Just keep on going.
Thank you. Your last words, Philip?
Andre, we're going to see you next month, first Thursday.
First Thursday, yes, sir. Go get your vaccine, Lance. I don't want to hear no excuses when I see you next month. Have a good one, gentlemen. All right, bye-bye. Bye-bye. All right, we have come to the end of another episode of The Source. Woody, I know you were on, but I've got to go now. I'll catch you next week, son, because, I know who loves you, baby. You love me, baby. Talking to Woody now. But coming up next is Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. I'll see you when I see you. Goodbye.